Hello everyone, my name is Dave Casuto, instructor for Learn It, and welcome to our Advanced Illustrator class. Hope you are excited to move on to the next level of this truly extraordinary program. We covered a lot of good stuff in our intro class. Now it's time to elevate your skills with some new creative tools. We'll be covering some pretty cool things like the touch type tool, exciting transformation and blending effects, how to create 3D objects, including text. We'll also explore the image trace tool, how to master live paint, working with and creating symbols, graphic styles, and so much more. Now, this course is designed to be an interactive, hands-on course, so occasionally you'll hear me say things like, pause the video and practice on your own. So make sure you download the class files from the link below to do so. This will ensure you get the most out of the course and learn the program in a more experiential, hands-on manner. I'm looking forward to teaching you all the cool things that an Illustrator of this advanced level has to offer. So stay tuned and get ready to learn. If you're enjoying these videos, please like and subscribe. If you want to earn certificates and digital badges, please become a member of our Patreon. The link is in our video description. If you have any questions you want answered by one of our instructors, please join our off-site community. The link is in the description as well. And as I mentioned, this course does have exercise files, and you'll find them in the video description below. Well, once again, welcome everyone. So this is our Advanced Illustrator class, but I'd really like us to make sure we're on the same page, that we are actually using some of our advanced tools, so we're not hunting around for them. I also want to make sure that we understand our workspace and also understand that we're all on the same page going throughout this class. So currently, I am working in this workspace up on top here called the Essentials workspace. So I want to make sure that you are working with your Essentials workspace and then you finally reset your Essentials workspace. And then what I want you to do is come over here, far upper left, this little guy right there. Make sure that you have your toolbar set up into 2 columns. And then I think even more importantly is I want you to click on these 3 little dots over here where it says Edit Toolbar. And you'll notice how there's a lot of tools here. Some might be gray, some might be colored in because we actually have them available to us. So what I'd like to do is actually make it so pretty much all of them are available, if not most of them. And how do I do that? Let's just simply click on this little flyout menu here, and you're going to choose Advanced. And now I need to go back to do my little double thing there, 2 columns, and you'll see that you probably have about twice as many tools available. So we go back over here to our edit toolbar, and you'll notice that most of them are gray because they're in fact already in here. Now, if you don't want some of these in our toolbar, if you're just kind of taking up space, you can simply just drag them out, drag them out, and then you can just put them wherever you want, just not use them, and you're good to go. All right, so keep that in mind. Also keep in mind that you can create new toolbars if you want to, and then basically customize it according to, let's say, projects you're working on. Maybe you're sharing a computer with somebody. You know, you might just have different purposes at different times. You can have a different toolbar and then access it later on. All right, now let's now talk about how we can bring out different panels that we're working with. Right now I have my tools panel over here. I'm going to go over here to window. I'm going to bring up my control panel. I like to have that up there. So again, go to window, control, and I might want some other things to come up. So if I go over here to window, I'm going to bring up my artboard. Definitely like that. There's just one artboard here. But if I go over to this one, you'll notice I have 3 artboards. Okay, cool. You can see how helpful that is to see all these. And if you need any review on some of these things, of course, go back to our intro class. So I go over to window, and then other things I might want to bring up is, let's say, my swatches panel. Great. Oh, all right. That's just going to kind of float there. Kind of like that. Maybe I don't, but maybe I want to play around with some other things as well. So let's bring up my layers panel. Yep, want that. Cool. Now, let's just say I'm good to go with this, and I want to really customize this. So what I can do is just start moving these things around, right? Taking this apart. These guys don't belong here. Okay, great. We worked with brushes in the last exercise, but I still actually want that there. But I don't want to take up all this space. So if you right click on here, you can say collapsed icons, and that's pretty cool. Let me go ahead and do the same thing for swatches and maybe even for symbols. But this time I'm going to click on this little guy right there to be able to do the same thing. And now watch this. As I click and drag, I'm going to move this over here to this sort of little left column right there. See that? And now I got a little space for all these, so I can access these anytime I want. Wait for my little blue halo. Great. Do the same thing. Love that. Fantastic. And then my artboards, I'm just going to drag that over here and then drag that into this little area right there. Cool. Love that. Now I'm good to go. All right. So love that. Fantastic. Amazing. Super happy. And I'm excited. But you know what? I don't really need this right now. So what do? I'm going to close it. Just get rid of it. Okay. But then I say, yeah, you know what? I miss that guy. I want him to come back. So very simply, come back to Window, and then you'll find it. Awesome. There it is. Comes right back. All right. But I'm going to close this. And I love this. I love exactly how this is laid out. And I want to save this for the future. So therefore, if I mess things up, I can always come back to this little happy place. So very simply, I click on my little drop-down menu up on top where I showed you a minute ago. And we're just going to choose New Workspace. I'm going to call this Dave's Advanced Tools. And now when I click on that, you're going to see there's Dave's Advanced Tools. Now again, how's that going to help me? Let's just say, for example, I totally messed this up. I even delete this guy. This is over here. Things are just getting messy, messy, messy. I can always do my little Mary Poppins effect by just simply clicking this and saying reset. And now it comes right back. Even the tools that I deleted, everything comes right back. All right. So again, just to review, I want to make sure that everybody has the same tools that we have here, because we're going to be using potentially some new tools you have not worked with before in our intro class. So I want to make sure that we have everything here, and just try to get your panels to look like mine as much as possible. Right, what we have up here, what we have on the top here, which is again our control panel. All right, so pause the video, make sure you're all caught up, and we'll see you in the next class. Now, I want to talk about something in Illustrator, something in the whole kind of Adobe ecosystem that a lot of you may have chosen to ignore over the course of your career with Adobe. And I know that because I know that I have. And that is working with our CC or Creative Cloud library. So I'm just going to drag this over here, and I'm just going to bring this back to what my library looks like. Now, the libraries allow you to organize all of your contents and assets according to just what those assets are, right? You can name it a certain thing. You can also place it in based off of those particular asset types, right? So it could be vector images, it could be type, could be different styles of sorts. Amazing. And what's so cool about this is that, number one, you can share it from program to program. Some of the things that I have available here for me are in InDesign. I created those in InDesign. And guess what? When I go to InDesign, I can access some of these other things, including some of these vector graphics, some of these other images, and things like that. Also, you can share these libraries with other people. That's really nice. You can collaborate. And also, if you go onto another computer, these come with you, right? So it is really, really fantastic. So you'll notice that when I have this here, let me just make this a little bit not so tall. Okay, so you'll notice here I have the option to create a new library. And you'll also notice that I have about 5 libraries already set up to go. So if you wanted to create a new library, absolutely you could do that. So I'm going to go ahead and do one that's called symbols. We're going to learn about symbols in this class. Just do that, and then bam, that's going to be ready for you to add on symbols. Okay, it's empty right now. So, but when you're ready to go, you just open it up and drag it in there. But let's say, for example, I have this little guy right here that I wanted to add in to a pre-existing library. So I actually have quite a few already, and I want to bring this guy into here. Why am I doing that? So I can use it over and over and over again, and I can share it between documents, between applications, right? And potentially between people. So I click and drag, and watch this, it's going to light up, and bam, there it is, avocado. Right click on that, and let's rename that to avocado. Very cool. Okay, done and done. Let's go to this guy here and just drag it in. Okay, right click, rename, call that pepper. Okay, wonderful, great, good to go. And I can always use that, right? These are all my individual vector graphics that I can come back and use anytime. So let's see that in action. I'm just going to do a blank new document. Great, good to go. And then guess what's waiting there for me inside of my vectors? I can then say, hey, you know what? I did that avocado once upon a time. I'd hate to have to do that all over again. Guess what? Just drag that out and voila, amazing. And it has all the same properties and everything. Don't have to go finding things. Don't have to recreate it, anything like that. It is really, really amazing. Just superb, all the cool stuff that you can do using libraries. Now you'll also notice how you can add people on here as well. Invite to the library, click on that, and it's going to ask you, okay, who do you want to invite? It's going to bring this up and you just go ahead and just type in who you want to work with, right? It's going to come right up and wait for it. It might take some time and don't want to take a tour. Just who do you want to invite to this and what can they do? Give them certain permission levels, right? Totally up to you how you want to use this, but just know the power of this, that you can absolutely close out of that. Okay, work with these in a really, really robust way to make you more efficient, your team more efficient. Okay, and then just make it so you don't have to recreate all these beautiful graphics that you have created once upon a time before. All right, so practice that. In a little bit, we're going to see how our Creative Cloud libraries can work with Adobe Stock just the same. Okay, so pause the video, practice this, and we'll see you in the next lesson. Earlier, we discussed the Creative Cloud library, and I mentioned how we're going to work with Adobe Stock, and Adobe Stock is going to work nicely with our Creative Cloud library. Let's see what it can do. Okay, Adobe Stock is absolutely amazing. So essentially for the price paid of admission, Adobe gives you access to just thousands and thousands of assets. Okay, many of them are free, many of them are premium. I'm only going to talk about the free ones. So you can see here I'm inside of Adobe Stock and I filter things out by free. You'll notice there's free here. There's also free here as well, but certainly go to town on any of these other ones if you like. But now let's see how we can work with our Adobe Stock interface and database. First thing you'll notice is way over here is that I am logged in as me. Okay, it's very important that you are logged in as you to make all of this work. You'll also notice that there is my libraries sitting right over there. When I click on that, you can see all my libraries pop up, including the one that I just created called symbols. Oh my God, they're all talking to each other. How cool is that? Okay, now what I want to do is simply start searching for things. Now, up on top here, I just put in the word characters, okay? Just a basic search box. Notice again, it's free. And then all these things pop up. Pretty cool. But I want to filter this out a little bit more because I'm looking for only particular types of formats, okay? So what do I want? Do I want asset types? You can see here is images. Okay, yeah, I want images. I don't want videos. I don't want 3D. Okay, all right, so images is pretty good. But then there's also subcategory of images. Well, what do I want? I want vectors. Yeah, I'm a vector guy now, right? I work with Illustrator. I only want vector images. So fantastic, I do that. And you can see about 3,400 results come up. Great, I love that. And then you can change your orientation if you want to. Kind of nice, right? If I only want vertical ones, you can see how that's going to change a little bit. Now I only have 429. Okay, let's go ahead and just say horizontal. Now I have 1,100. Let's go back to all, and I'm going to have significantly more because it also includes like panorama and square. Right? Do I want people? Right? I chose characters, so I pretty much like want all, but let's just say only includes people because maybe it's giving me more than what I need because I really just want characters. Okay, that's kind of fun. Awesome. All right, and again, I chose vectors, so I'm going to be able to manipulate these in a really cool way. So I'm pretty much good to go. So let's just find one that I really like. Okay, so I want you to notice here, when I move my mouse over it, I'm going to have this little heart. It's going to say save to library. And I'm also going to see where it says free. And I'm also going to see where it says license. I'm going to show you kind of what these things mean and kind of what our differences are. So I'm simply just going to click on save to library. And this pops up. And this also pops up over here saying, hey, it's saving it to vectors. Do I want that? I don't know. I mean, they guessed pretty well, but maybe not. So when I click on manage, I can always switch it up to be a different library. All right, okay, pretty cool. This time I'm gonna save this little gentleman here. And what am I gonna do this time? I'm gonna choose license. We're gonna see the difference between these two. Click on license, and it should save into my library just the same. Nice, okay? But now notice what it does. It allows me to now download this, okay, into my computer, right? So you can see it's gonna be Adobe Illustrator. And I'm gonna say illustration man smoking. Kids, don't smoke if you're watching this. This is not an endorsement. Okay, so I'm gonna save that there. Okay, don't worry about where it's saved for right now. Very good. Notice this says license. This does not say license. We're gonna see sort of the difference there as we move forward. Okay, so just understand we are going to get this. It's amazing. It's gonna be ready to go for us, right? And there's gonna be a difference between these two, but understand that we just downloaded vectors. So therefore, we're going to have the ability to manipulate this. Okay, so if I want to give this person different hair, different skin color, maybe I want to remove that cigarette, right? I can absolutely do that. I just wanted, you know, his form, his shape, right? All those things, I can absolutely do that. Now, let's get out of here and let's go back to Illustrator, and I'll create a blank new document. And let's just see the different options I have available to me based off of what I just did. So I go here to vector, and look what is waiting there for me. How cool is that? So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to right click, and you can see, you can say place copy, place linked. Oh, here's an option to license image. That's right, I didn't license that. And a whole bunch of other options you might want to work with. Okay. Also note that I can just drag this out and then draw it. And then bam, it's right there. But, okay. Not sure if I like that. I just got that. You know, Dave said it was free. Why am I seeing this watermark here? What do you think's happening? I didn't license it. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to get rid of it. And this time, right click on it. I'm going to say license image, and it's going to start kind of talking to the database a little bit. It's trying, it's going. Wait for it. Takes a minute or maybe seconds, depending on your internet connection and how Adobe's feeling that day. Wait for it. Love it. And now just drag that in and then drag it out. Nice. No more watermark. So cool. All right, now this guy, because I licensed him before, I can also just drag it. But this time I'm just going to say edit. It's going to pop up and whoa, look at that. I have complete access to this and I can do whatever I want with it. Love that. No watermark, nothing. I go to my layers panel and I'll see, man, there is a lot going on inside of this image that I do not have to deal with. Thank you, Adobe. Holy cow. Look at all this stuff that I do not have to draw. That is all now readily available to me. Now I just click on that. Okay, cool. I'm going to change his skin color. All right, cool. Change his hair color. Love that. Okay, so all of this stuff is now available, easily accessible. And thanks to Adobe Stock and licensing it, and now also working with our libraries to stay organized with everything that you bring in from Adobe Stock. Okay, so, and maybe you want to actually bring these guys in because maybe we'll actually do some exercises using these guys as well throughout our class today. Okay, so practice the video, enjoy Adobe Stock, really experiment with all the different things that you can get, not just vector, and also make sure that you're saving them to these libraries that you've already created up until this point. Okay, pause the video and we'll see you in the next lesson. Let's now talk about the touch type tool. You're going to find the touch type tool with all the rest of the tools, and you're going to see here as touch type. I'm just going to activate that. Now let's talk about what the touch type tool is and what it can do for you. When you have type out like this, normally you can just do some basic edits to it. You can adjust the tracking, you can adjust the leading, you can adjust the size, including the vertical and horizontal scaling. What touch type allows you to do is isolate each individual letter. So therefore, you can maybe put it on a different plane, you can resize it, you can change the color, and all that other good stuff, right? So when you're in normal type, You can actually do that, but the touch type tool allows you to have that kind of fun, creative configuration for it. So notice my cursor, it now has that little T in a box with the arrow. I simply click on one letter and you'll notice what happens. That letter then gets isolated. What I can do next is just simply move it where I want. Well, that's pretty cool. Guess what else I can do? I can also resize it, move it down. All right, let me go resizing this way, move it this way, resizing it vertically, resizing it horizontally and vertically. Wow, how cool is that? I can move this down a little bit. Nice. Let's try next letter. I just simply click on it and notice I can go right and left. I can just move it down from here. I can go up and down this way and I can actually expand it that way. Okay, so if you scroll in a little bit, you'll see that each of the corners has their own purpose to them. Okay, if you see that, now this is going to go up and down, this is going to go diagonally, inside or out, this is going to go left to right, and this will actually move it. Okay, so if you just click and drag on that, all right, very cool. Let's do this one here, and then let's make that a little bit bigger. Let's drag that down a tiny bit, and let's just go to this one. Let's drag that down a bit, come to here. You see how easy that is and kind of how fun that it can be, because now we all want to go to Happy Farms. Okay, very cool. Make that a little bit bigger. All right, and you can just drag that down pretty much from anywhere to whatever kind of feels natural, and just experiment a little bit. And you can make that a little bit smaller. You just want to be kind of creative with how you lay things out. Okay, let's move the F a little bit further away. Oops, let's undo that. Let's move the F a little bit for okay, let's try that again. I'm going to grab it from here. Oh, you know why that's doing that? That is doing that because I'm running out of room and it's pushing everything over. So just keep in mind, make sure that you have a little bit of space along the outside. Okay, so now next I might want to change the colors of these. So I go back over to here and guess what? This is now isolated and I can change each individual selected color to be whatever color I want. All right, so let's now just change it to one of our happy colors. Very cool. Go to here and let's maybe choose something similar once again. All right, love that. I'm just going to choose all my pinks right now. All right, and then let's make this also pink. All right, very good. And now super easy. I just keep going to town on all my different colors. And also notice that if you wanted to, okay. So you see how this works. Pretty amazing to be able to really execute different things that you want in terms of the spacing, the size, and all that good stuff here, and then also the color. Now let's also see what we can do with strokes. So you can see, very easy. I just apply that, make that have a little bit more of a stroke compared to the rest of them. Hey, that's kind of fun. Let's try this one. Let's have this one have a stroke. And let's make that one be a white stroke and make that a little bit thicker. Okay, so just a combination of a lot of different things that you can do, including color, which is both the fill and the stroke, and also resizing it, and then also moving it in other places. Also, experiment with different fonts as well. Sometimes the blockier fonts maybe work a little bit better, but you can always change this because this is still live text. All right, so don't forget that. Even though we've now switched over to our touch type tool, we can always switch back over to all these and we can change this to something completely different if we want to. So no longer is it just Happyland Farms, it's just Happyland Farm. Okay, and I can very easily work with that and all the other type and paragraph settings as well. Pause the video, practice it up, have fun, and we'll see you in the next lesson. In this next series of lessons, we are going to talk about transformation options, and not just ordinary transformation options where we start working with these guys over here, like our reflect and our rotate and our scale and our move. We're going to go a little bit deeper, a little more complex, which is going to give us not only more control, but it's also going to allow us to come back and make very easy changes and do it in a much more efficient way and also in a more scalable way. All right, so you'll see here we have this beautiful object, and notice how this is created with these nice, beautiful sort of like concentric lines coming smaller and then growing out, out, out. And there's also, notice there's a little bit of a gradient in there, kind of creating this really kind of cool dimension effect. You'll also notice that my canvas has a grid on there. It also has some guides on there. All right, and you'll also notice how my stroke is maybe a little bit uneven. So if you take a look at my appearance panel right here, you'll see that there's a few things happening that's telling us, well, what did it actually do? Why is it doing what it's doing? So let's just kind of give away the secrets for right now, and then we'll go ahead and create this. So this particular object only has one stroke on it, right? Okay, interesting. Oh, it's the stroke that's in the middle. Well, how's that going to happen? That's interesting. And you'll see also that it has a fill. Yeah, that makes sense. I can see that. And there's also something called transform on here. And this transform is what's known as an effect, right? So you can see there is this effects section on the bottom of our appearance panel, not just the plain old stroke and fill, but also the effects that we can apply to these. And we're going to do a whole series of these. And we're going to start off with just basic transformation effects, but you'll be very surprised on how much we can do with just a very, very small bit of transformation, whether it's scaling, it's rotating, it's moving, all kinds of cool things, but we're going to repeat them and copy them over and over again. Now you'll also notice that this one has a nice little kind of rounded corner, and it also has this cool little stroke for us to work with to kind of get just a different set of visual element for us to create from. Okay, so pretty neat. So let's just see how we can create something like this. So let's just start off, Command or Control N to do a blank new document. I'm just going to do 12 inches by 12 inches. I'm going to do a nice little square, one artboard for now, pretty good. All right, and then really not going to change anything at all, no bleed. I click on Create. And then when this comes up, I'm just going to click in this sort of neutral area here, go over to my properties, because I want to add on some things to make sure that I can see my guides, my grids, and make everything kind of perfect, and also my rulers and everything like that. So we go over here to the far right, and you're going to see here's our rulers and grids, our guides, also our snap to options, super important. So let's bring up our ruler. Bam, that shows up. I love that. I also want to see my grid. Okay, that's great. And also you'll notice here's my guides. You can see, do you want to hide your guide or not, right? So totally up to you. What do you want to do? Okay, so I'm going to make it so I can make it visible. This is also going to make it so, do you want to lock your guides? Sometimes you want to lock them, sometimes you don't. So I'm going to keep that unlocked because I do not want to lock it. And then this one I think is very important, which is your snap options. And this middle one is the one that we're going to choose. Right now it's off. I want to make it on. And we're going to see that is going to come to play in just a minute. So let me now create my first guide so I can say, okay, well, where is the center? I go right there, bam, love that, that's blue. I come over to there and then bam, okay, that's blue. I can see I have these two guides here. Now, the other thing that I like to do when I create guides is put them on their own layer. So when I open this up, you'll notice here I have two guides. I'm just gonna double click on that. I'm just gonna call that guides and then make a new layer. And I'm just going to call this square shapes. I was going to type out psychedelia, but not sure if I can type it right now on the spot. Okay, very good. So fantastic. We're good to go. And let me come back to my properties. And you'll see here, if I need to select that, I certainly can. If you accidentally are doing that and you don't want to do it, you can lock them so you don't accidentally now click them. All right, so just a good habit to get into with all of this. So let's see what I need to do first. I'm just going to very simply draw out a square that has no fill for right now, but it has a little bit of a stroke. So go over here to my square, and I'm going to tell it just to give me a black stroke, and very simply just start drawing right here from the center, holding down the Shift and the Alt key to draw out concentrically. See that? And you'll notice how when I do that, it just snaps right into the guides, right? So very cool to be able to do that. All right, nice. So I'll just do that right now. And look at my appearance panel, and you will see I have one stroke and no fill. But now let's start doing what we wanted to do all along, which was repeat this and kind of make it look a little bit more interesting. So let me go over to here, making sure this is still selected, come way down to the bottom here and then choose Effects. And this time we're going to go to Distort and Transform and just say Transform. And this is going to pop up. This great little dialog box basically asking me about scale. Where do I want to move it? How do I want to rotate it? So pretty much like all of my transformation options are in one window. Okay, pretty neat. Now you'll see also I could rotate this. I can do all kinds of other options here in terms of, do I want to transform the object? Certainly. Do I want to scale my strokes and effects as this thing gets bigger and bigger? Totally up to you. But guess what? With this preview chosen, you're going to have the ability to see what you're doing as you do it. So I'm just going to make this go up, let's just say 105%. Okay, and you see, all right, is that doing what I want to do? I don't know. Let's make some copies. I'm just going to make this 20 copies. Hit tab. All right, we're on our way. I'm going to go ahead and use my mouse wheel, make that go more and more and more. All right, kind of like that. Let's go up to 35. Cool, sort of. Let me just see what else I can do. I would like to go down here and say, listen, you know what? I made a mistake. I should have actually had that start from the middle. Guess what? Because the effect is only on the middle shape here, if I bring in this middle shape, watch what happens now. I'm going to just do Shift and Alt or Option on the Mac. Just bring that in. And now look how it reinvents itself. Ooh, that's pretty neat. Oh, but I want to go and transform again. What do I do? Do I go back here? I got to start over again? No, just go over to here to the transform option and it's going to take you right back to where you were before. Oh, awesome. Now let's just see what happens if I make that maybe a little bit bigger and make this a little bit bigger. Nice. Okay, we're kind of getting someplace. Maybe not so big. I'm just using the mouse wheel again. You'll notice how I can also make one part 1% growth, another part a different one. So a little more interesting shape. All right, so totally up to you. Doesn't have to be a perfect square. Doesn't have to be perfect anything. Whatever you want it to be. See that? You're just kind of creating the illusion. Somebody walking down a hallway, right? They're just doing all kinds of, just experiment with it. And you'll see, all right, what do I want? And don't worry about it because you can always come back to this. Now, some of you may have this scale, strokes, and effects bottom, and then, okay, that could be something interesting that you do want, because when you do that, it starts off small, but as it grows, it's going up by 108%. So watch what happens as I make that thicker. Those also get very thick. There's no right or wrong here at all. It's really just depending on what you want to do. Okay, so let me just make that slightly smaller. And you'll see again how that comes together just like that. All right, I'm going to turn that off for now, bring this back up. And again, notice how you can just change things so easily and this rapidly, it just brings things back to how you want them or don't want them. Okay, so let's just go ahead and click OK. And now let's try a few other things that you might want to work with. We saw how there was a rounded shape inside of my shape. Okay, let's just have a little bit of a different look for this. Okay, so you'll see here, this is an actual shape. So if I go over to here to my direct selection tool, you're going to see I have options to work with my corners. Okay, so I actually want to have rounded corners on this. So if I click on this here, you're going to see, all right, well, what do you want to do? Okay, so I'm just going to bring that up. Whoa, look what that does. All right, interesting. Maybe that was a little bit too much. So let's just kind of go a tiny bit. Maybe I'm just going to say 0.1. Okay, maybe a little less so. Fantastic. Maybe you want to experiment with only doing one side. So then you can say, listen, that's just going to only be that part. So I'm just going to drag this out a little bit and then drag this one out a little bit. So it's not as perfectly symmetrical. So you'll notice how they're a little bit different. If I just select this and bring this all the way out, you'll see, okay, now that's very different, right? Because this is a little more of a corner. So we zoom out a little bit. We're starting to see how we're getting a pretty neat effect of kind of dimensionality. All right, now let's go and apply our gradient. Again, this is just like any other shape, but it's just repeating. So watch what happens now. I'm going to apply my gradient by going over to here, and then I'm just going to choose this gradient just like that. All right, not too bad. Like that. All right, kind of interesting. Kind of step away for a second. Just take a look at what we've done. Maybe you want to take a look at it without all this stuff in here. You can go over here into presentation mode. You'll see, all right, what we're doing there. I'm going to hit escape. Let's do a couple other things. I'm going to go back and select my shape, but this time I'm going to choose a different stroke for me to work with. So zoom in a little bit more. And let's see what kind of strokes we can work with here. So notice I have all these variable width profiles that I can explore. So if I click on this one, for example, notice how it dramatically changes everything. Let's go over to a different one. Let's go over to that one. Ah, interesting. Let's click away, be able to see that. Very nice. Take our grids off. I'm just doing Control or Command and the semicolon, or the quotes and plus Control, and that takes everything away. And of course you can bring them right back. Again, Control plus semicolon, Control plus the quotes. All right, so how do you want to view this? All right, now you also might want to go a step further by just changing maybe to a very different type of brush stroke. All right, not so much. All right, now let me experiment. What about that one? Whoa, did not see that coming. So much you can do here. Let's bring it back to our original. And let's just change the variable width to something a little more simple. Cool. All right, I like that. Really excellent. So much cool stuff you can do with just a couple of clicks. Now, let's go back to where we started. All right, and we'll go to my transform again. And let's just say I want to add on a few more copies because I love this so much. Making sure that this is selected. It's easy to forget. All right, there we go. And let's go to here and let's watch it grow, grow, and grow. Click OK. Zoom out a little bit. Very nice. I'm going to do Control and the sign right there so you can see exactly what we've created. And look at that relatively complex shape that we did relatively easy. Because what did we do? We just drew out a shape and we went to the appearance panel and then we just transformed it. We transformed it using our distort and transform, and then we went over here to transform, and then we just played around with all of our other options. Let me bring that up again. All of our options for scaling, and then we just added on some copies, right? It's really a matter where are you starting off, and then Illustrator does all the work for you. Okay, so pause the video, practice this. Practice this on any number of different types of objects, really experimenting with how you're going to change the object more and more later on in terms of the corners, how the widths of the stroke itself, the type of strokes you put onto it, maybe the color of the stroke, maybe the stroke will even have a gradient on it, not just the fill. Who knows? Okay, play around with it and maybe you'll come up with a new logo. Maybe you'll come up with a new app design, something like that. All right, so see you in the next video. Practice up and have fun. Following up on our lesson with the transformation effects, let's see how we can create something similar to this. Okay, and you can see that the process is not much different than what we just did with our transformation, with our scaling. The major difference here is going to be that we're scaling smaller, but then we're also, guess what, rotating. All right, so again, you may know how to rotate in other ways, right? Looking at the tools bar over here, but you may want to do it in the appearance panel for all the reasons we just showed you in the last lesson. So you can go back and make changes to it very, very easily. You can apply more than one copy, and you can just come back and make what other kind of modifications and different types of intricate needs that you have in terms of the scaling of the strokes, yes or no, however you want to do that, and then go back and applying all kinds of different things to the shapes themselves, like a gradient, like a different type of stroke, etc. Now, let's just see what's going on with this particular shape, you'll notice how this is a shape that's not a perfect square. You can see I have two corners over here and I've got a little rounded corner here. Okay, pretty cool. So that's just nice to be able to do that. And then you see here in my appearance panel, I have a stroke that is black and I have a fill that is this gradient. And then you'll see here I have a transformation effect on my stroke. And guess what I have now? I have a scale that's smaller and smaller, and I'm also rotating it about 2%, and I'm also making 26 copies. All right, so let's just see what that looks like when I make more copies. See how it's going in. Look at that. And I can keep going on forever and ever and ever. Maybe I'm going to do less copies. All right, maybe I'm going to do something a little bit more subtle. I can do something like that very, very easily. Okay, but notice how it just keeps rotating about two degrees, and it's rotating, making it smaller about 95%. Cool. So let's see how we can create something like that. I'm going to create a new artboard for us to work with. Bam, there we have it. And let's just create a shape that is just going to be, let's just do a rounded rectangle. That's great. And now I'm going to go to my direct selection tool, click on this guy. Notice I'm isolating it, and then only that is going to have a hard corner. Click on this, isolating it, click on this one and drag it out. And only that one's going to have a hard corner. Cool. Love that. All right, but if I wanted to have this to be a little bit more of a corner radius, I can simply click on this, and I'm going to go over to here and make that even more round. I'll bring that up to 20. And then this one will also be 20. And again, let's take a look at our stroke. And I just remember the last thing that was on there, but of course you can change that to anything else you like. I'll just do this one again. Pretty cool. And then maybe I will bring up my gradient to make it a slightly different type of gradient. Let's make that. So I'll bring this up, and there that is. And I'm going to make that a radial gradient. Fantastic. Good to go. And now let's just see what we can do with our appearance panel to apply a different type of look for this in a very quick way. So go ahead and choose your stroke, go over here to effects, again, go to distort and transform. I'm going to say transform, and you saw what we did already. Let's just try that out. I'm just going to bring this down to 95, bring this down to 95. And the only thing I'm going to do that's going to be majorly different here is my rotation. So I'm just going to rotate this about 2 degrees. And let's just see what that does. Watch what happens now. I'm going to make my copies. I go. Not too shabby. Let's go ahead and rotate it even more. Whoa, wow. Look what we can do so quickly, so easily, just by this very simple transformation effect. And again, I showed you earlier how you can do something like that or like that. So totally up to you how you want to show this ultimately at the end of the day. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and click OK. And what I want you to do when you're practicing is try to create something like this or any other kind of shape that you want to work with, but use this as your model, understanding that we just started off with a very, very basic shape, right? We have this little hexagon, and we just repeated it over and over and over again as it, guess what? Shrunk down in scale, and we also rotated it -6. So if I make that go the other direction, notice it can go the other direction. Okay, so wow, look how cool, how quickly you can have something as complex as that. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and hit OK. And I'm going to suggest you pause the video, practice this, and then while you're in the distort and transformation effects, try out some other ones as well. Welcome back, welcome back. And in this lesson, we are going to get a little more creative. This is going to be about how to actually create a project such as this which is essentially how to draw what I'm calling just a Celtic knot, right? Where I want to show how do we kind of create the illusion that these guys are going in and out and up and around and around. And it's like, oh my God, how's that happening? How are we actually making it kind of do all of this without actually having to do it manually by drawing it out? It's actually a little more simple than you may realize. Okay, so follow along in this exercise. You may need to watch this again and again to get this and maybe write some of it down, but I have provided some exercise notes on this within the courseware. So let's go ahead and just create a blank new document. And I'm just going to make that square. That's perfect. And we're going to start off very simply by just drawing out a rectangle that is a stroke and it has no fill. Okay, so I'm going to make it so it has no fill, and then there's my stroke. Okay, and I'm going to make my stroke about 60. You can make yours a little thicker if you want to. And very simply, just draw out a rounded rectangle. So just come in maybe like that. Okay, I like that. So far, so good. And next thing I'm going to do, if you want to, again, you can round the corners if you like. So if I want to, I can round them a little more. So just maybe go more. So it just kind of looks like that. Fantastic, good to go. Now, next thing we're going to do is we're going to rotate our shape. And I'm also going to copy it. So I don't want to just rotate this one. I actually want to have a second one that is based off of this one that is rotated. So very simply, I'm going to go over here to my rotate options. You can see here is rotate. And if you double click on the rotate tool, you will see this pops right up, giving me the options of, okay, well, what is the angle you want to rotate on? I want to rotate 90 degrees. Perfect. But instead of clicking OK, I'm going to choose copy. And now look at that. Cool. I have the beginnings of my little Celtic knot. So what happens next? I want to actually make it so my stroke for both of these is on the outside of the shape. This is very, very important because in a minute, I'm going to do something called expanding my appearance. So I need to actually make it so my stroke is now going to be on the outside of the shape. This is the part that you'll forget. It's kind of odd, but let me just show you what we're going to do. Very simply, we'll go over here to stroke, and I'm going to choose that I want it to be on the outside. Notice there's a line stroke on the outside. Cool, there's that. I go over to here. I'm going to choose this guy. Again, same exact thing. I'm going to say aligns to the outside of it. Okay, cool. And if you want to, you can just kind of manipulate this even further if you like. But I'm going to keep it as is. But understand that this is now the beginning. This is the foundation of what we're going to create. So it's very important that you have it more or less how you want it to look right now. And you're not sure about it, you can always make some copies of this. So then you can always come back to it later on, but maybe you make some different shape copies for you to work with in just a minute after you finish doing it and you don't like it. So let's now just highlight all of our stuff here. So I'm just going to marquee over everything here. And next, I'm going to do what we call expanding the appearance. Because right now, all this is simply just a stroke, right? It's not really going to do much for me. So when I expand my appearance, it makes it into a shape that I can work with. So how do I do that? I'm going to go over here to Object. I'm going to say Expand Appearance. And now that happens. And really, nothing really major happens for us in terms of like what we can see. It's still not looking like a Celtic knot, but let's just see what we do to kind of start the process to make it like a Celtic knot or whatever you want to call it, any kind of knot or any kind of like interweaving. We're going to use this amazing tool called the Shape Builder tool. All right, so let's just see what this does. You'll notice as soon as I click on that, I can now move my mouse over these individual parts to then blend together one section into another, because these are all now kind of overlapping with each other, but they're not actually blended together. Okay, now let's see what happens now when I drag down, going like this. I go across, going like that. I come up, going to here, and then I come over, going like that. And you can now start to see the beginnings of this little kind of circuitry that I've created. All right, now for us to really get some dimensionality, let's put a stroke around this. So I'm going to just simply highlight it all, and then I'm going to go over to here to my strokes. So let's make that red, And let's make that bigger, 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 bigger. Love that. Really coming together. It's all one big group. And I can now rotate it. And now I've got my finished product. Pretty amazing. And then maybe you're going to duplicate this. Maybe you're going to overlap it. Maybe you're going to put something inside of this. You're going to do lots of things, and this is going to be the starting point. Some of you may know how to work with symbols. Maybe you want to just spray out some symbols. We're going to be covering symbols in a little bit, but you can see how easy that was. Maybe some of you are going to work with type to do the same thing. You want type to kind of interweave with something else, right? With letters going into another letter. So this is a really extraordinary set of tools to work with, where we expanded our appearance that started from a stroke. And then once we did that, we're able to use the amazing Shape Builder tool to weave all of our content in between each other so they're all get connected and make the appearance and make the illusion that they're looping inside and out of each other. All right, so pause the video, practice this, watch this as much as you need to, and feel free to go ahead and look at the notes that I provided in the courseware. So in this next set of lessons, we're going to do a pretty heavy exercise where we're going to learn how to create this kind of like flower sort of mandala slash sort of logo potentially in a number of different ways. So earlier we worked on creating some pretty complex shapes using our effects on the appearance panel. And we're going to do something similar to what we've already done, but we're going to go a few steps further. We're going to rotate this time, but we're going to rotate a number of different objects. We're going to group them, and then ultimately we're going to end up at the live paint tool so we can see how we can create something. So we're going to kind of go step by step on this. So I have a blank artboard down below for me to work with. And very simply for right now, I'm just going to create a shape for me to start with. Don't worry about getting this part perfect, because guess what? You can always come back and change it, and then it's going to be linked up to where we started. So how I'm going to do this is just very simply, I'm going to choose the ellipse tool, making sure, and this is very important, that I have no color fill, and I'm just going to have a very thin black stroke, and just simply click like that. Okay, great, fantastic, no problem there. But I really want to make my petal to be sharp on the outside, a little more pointy. So I go over here to my direct selection tool, choose that, and then as simple as this, I can just go over here to my convert tool, and then bam, that's now pointy. Okay, if I want to do the same thing on this side, I absolutely can. So click on that, great. If I want to make this a little bit taller, I can just simply click on that, use my arrow keys in my keyboard just to basically make that as tall or short as I want to. Same thing with this guy. All right, so this is just the beginning of my first petal. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to make maybe a little kind of circle, add some dimensionality in there. Sure, why not? So I'm going to go over here to my circle. Again, pretty much same thing where I want to make it so my stroke is black and thin, and then I have no fill in there at all. So I'm just going to just simply click and drag more or less from the center in there. Okay, that's great. And again, don't worry about too much about the size and all that other stuff in terms of the stroke size and everything. But what I want to do in this case, I'm going to align this to make sure that these are aligned well. So I highlight everything, and then I'm going to click on this little drop down here to align selection and center it. Perfect. Now I can see that they're nicely aligned. Love that. If I want to be right smack in the center, then I would align my vertical centers doing it that way. But this is good for right now, because I'm going to change this. Believe me, this is just a start. Now, why did I do this, and why is this going to create this complex shape? Really, the question is how? How is it going to do that? So let's now highlight both your shapes and group them. So if you just right click on it, you can just choose group. That's fantastic. That's great. Now I'm going to apply my rotate effect on this. So I'm going to go over here to my appearance panel. I'm going to go over here to effects and go over here to distort and transform, and then transform. And from here, all I'm going to do is very simply adjust my rotation options. Okay, so here is rotate. And not only that, I'm going to adjust it so when I rotate it, it rotates in the right place. This is incredibly important. I want you to watch me like do it wrong. So watch this. I'm going to rotate this and I'm like, oh, wait, that's not at all what I want to do. Huh, what's happening here? Where is it actually rotating from? As you can see here, it's rotating from the center. I don't want that because I want to create like a million petals going along the outside. So therefore they have to rotate coming from the center. So if you'll notice here, way down below is this little guy right here, basically saying, hey, where do you want to rotate from? I want to rotate from that guy right there on the bottom. So now when I change my angle, let's just watch. So I go that way, negative, go that way, one way or another. Okay, cool. Now I'm starting to see what I could possibly create with this. Oh, okay. Maybe it's just going to be a simple flower like that. Maybe you want to overlap to have a little more of a complex angle, right? Totally up to you. And again, because you can change this anytime you want. Now that I have my angle chosen, I can now choose how many copies I want very simply just by scrolling up and down and down and down. That is so cool. All right, and you'll see, okay, you know what? I could have done my angle a little bit better. Maybe, okay, great. That's perfect. It's exactly what I wanted in terms of my rotation and my angle. And wow, maybe you're done and you love this. You see how I created this so quickly and easily. Let's click OK. We'll take a look at our appearance panel. You can see there's our transform. If we ever need to get back to that again, click cancel. Now let's start to see the power of this. The fact that we actually created this complex shape using our appearance panel is going to allow us to then say, hey, listen, I want to actually make some changes to this. I decide, you know what, I prefer to have this guy here. Just double click on it to get into it. I want to have this move up. So watch what happens now when I move this up. So do all the rest of them. That is so cool. See that? I just choose one to move and they all move. Oh my God, look at that going up and down, up and down. Maybe I'm gonna have them overlap like that. Oh my God, look what it just did. So cool. So all I'm doing here is I'm just using my arrow keys and then Illustrator does all the rest. All right, now let me see if I wanna just have more than one. So I'm just gonna hold down the Alt key just to duplicate this. So I'm gonna hold down Alt and the Shift key and watch what I do. As I clone this, and I'm going to do that, come back out of this, and now I have two of these. But why did I do that? So then I can separate them out, do it a little bit different. Let's bring this in. Watch, we're all going to do that. And now this guy is going to become a slightly different shape for me. And how am I going to do that? It's going to very simply be let's do another little pointed guy here. So I will choose the direct selection tool, click on that, and I'm going to make this pointed. Nice. So like that, let's make that also pointed by going back up to here and then convert that. Cool. And now let's see what happens when I, kind of like that, maybe that, bring it down a bit. Okay. And now you see, you just kind of just go crazy, experiment with these. Like what's the shape that you're looking for that maybe you didn't find right away, that maybe you're going to end up finding after you just kind of go this way. Oh, that's kind of neat. Look at that. Or go out like this. All right. Wow. Just make one change, and because it repeats over and over again, it makes that change repeatedly, so you don't have to worry about it. It's the coolest thing. So let's get back out of this. Let's check it out and zoom out. All right. Maybe you're happy with this, maybe you're not. You can very, very easily change this. Okay, so this is really all about just choosing one shape, or maybe you're modifying the shape later on, but you're choosing one shape, you're grouping it all together with another shape, and then you go over to your appearance panel, and then you are going to apply some type of distortion. In this case, we transformed it and we just rotated it and then made however many copies you want to work with over and over and over again based off of a certain angle, and you're good to go. All right, so really practice that. Okay, understand how you can do it. You can see how here's another example I've done. And this one involved color. So what we're going to do in this next exercise is going to be our first lesson on working with the live paint tool. All right, so stay tuned, but make sure you practice this and you can do all of these things before we move on. All right, so pause the video and have fun. Now at this point, you should have a nice little flower or mandala or some kind of repeating element that you've created, so we can now paint it. So earlier I showed you an example of this, and this essentially started off looking like this. And how did we get it to make it so we have these nice, beautiful colors inside of these shapes? We worked with something called the live paint tool, And this is an excellent, excellent tool for working with painting for individual parts of something where you have these individual shapes and nooks and crannies, and to make it look really solid and really nice. So currently, this is not available to be a live paint group. I have to make it so. So I'm just going to simply just click right there. So I'm going to go over to my regular selection tool and I select it. Okay. Now it's still just one individual shape. So this is very important. I need to do what's called expanding the appearance. So whatever I see in front of me, it then becomes whatever is shown as individual shapes. Right now, it's just one shape that's able to be repeated over and over again. Certainly that has its benefits, but I'm done. I love this. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is go over here to the object menu. I'm going to say expand appearance, and you'll see, whoa, look what happens now. Every single one of these becomes their own independent shape. So if I click on these, I can now manipulate this if I want to make this a little bit different, which is kind of cool, right? So if I actually want to make this a little bit more kind of realistic, I can bring this out here so they're not super uniform, because maybe that's something you want. Maybe sometimes you don't after a while. So you can just really kind of play around with all of these things here and just experiment that, like, all right, great. Now that I've expanded the appearance, I have all that kind of cool control to work with. Now, let's start giving this a little bit of color, a little bit of personality. So how do I do that? We are going to now make this into a live paint group. All right, so where am I going to find my live paint? Yours is probably hiding underneath your shape builder tool. And you can see there is my live paint bucket. So when I click on that, you're going to see it's going to give me the option now to start painting. But what I need to do first of all is make this into a live paint group, right? So that could be a little bit confusing. It's like, well, why am I getting this circle slash? So if I now select everything and then I come over to here, now I can then make everything into a live paint group. You have to select it to affect it. Okay, so now watch what happens now. I'm going to click and now it's a live paint group. I know nothing really happened. There's no fireworks, nothing like that, but it is now a live paint group. Now let's watch and see what this is going to allow me to do. So your live paint bucket works in sync with your swatches. So let's bring our swatches over here. And presumably you got your swatches all ready to go, whatever kind of swatch you want. But I'm going to start off with this nice pretty purple color. And watch what happens now when I mouse over and I just simply click. How cool is that? Bam, bam, bam. Just going to town. Love that. That is awesome. Very cool. All right, just clicking away, painting some flowers, and just notice how everything is separated out individually, right, by what I have created using my earlier tool to make these individual shapes, and then I expanded my appearance. So Illustrator knows that these are all individualized, okay? Let's now do something in the middle here. Let's just do pink. All right, I'm gonna come over to here, bam, bam, bam. Okay, very cool. All right, loving this, so happy. Nice. And just imagine this is something that you drew, maybe something you got from someplace else, just like an illustration that you did, just some kind of drawing. All right, it's really starting to come together, a little more interesting. Let's now try one of these gradients. Click on that. I can still do a gradient too. Click on that. Oh, that's kind of neat. Cool, yes. Nice. A little more visual interest for me. Okay, Now let's zoom in and we can really go crazy with all this stuff here, right? So of course we don't waste too much time, but let's just add in some more purple again. It's going to come in there. See, you get your nice little nooks and crannies. It's easy as that with the Live Paint tool. Click, click, and click. All right, now let's just zoom out a little bit. See what we've done. It's going to click away. All right, and not too bad. Not too bad for about, what, 10 minutes worth of work. Okay, now let's go to the next level with this. Okay, that you may want to just remove some of your strokes. Okay, now this one's going to get a little bit crazy once I remove the strokes, but just for the purpose of the exercise, I want you to see what we can actually do while we are removing strokes to make the image look a little bit different, because this one does not have any strokes. So notice how it looks a little more cleaner. Okay, so what I'm going to do is just simply highlight everything here, and I'm just going to bring down my strokes. And I click away. You can see how much cleaner that looks as a result. Okay, you can probably zoom in a little bit. Okay, pretty cool. And now I just have that little bunch of things in the center, but they're still there if I want to, right? So if I do want to color them in, I can easily do that with my Live Paint. They're still there, but I'm just not going to have any strokes to be able to do that. Okay, so I'm not going to worry about my strokes anymore. So I'll just make this yellow, 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 but still no strokes. Even though you get rid of the strokes, doesn't mean you can't fill in any of our fills. Nice. Let's zoom out a little bit, see what that looks like. Cool, that is beautiful. Okay, so I mean, a lot of these things, like, wow, what am I going to get once I just rotate things, I repeat things, and then I expand it out, and then I start applying different colors using our Live Paint tool. Okay, now in a little bit, we're going to do a little more simple one because I wanted to kind of make this sort of a complete project, but we're going to see how we can do Live Paint on just like a basic character. All right, so practice this and we'll see you in the next lesson. In the last exercise, we talked about Live Paint. Now we are going to use Live Paint on these little characters, but I didn't draw these. So what I need to do is trace them. I don't want to have to draw them out because I'm not that good of an artist. I'm not very good with the pen tool. So I want Illustrator to be able to do some tracing for me so then I can do live painting on this. Okay, so what does tracing look like and where do we find our trace options? So I'm going to select my image here. And if I go over here to Window, you're going to see there is an option for my panel to bring up the image trace. Okay, so let's go ahead and make sure you have something selected, and you'll see that this lights up with a bunch of presets for how you may want to trace. So you will see here different presets for different file types, for different quality, right? For different colors. Okay, you can see, wow, all these different things here. Now, before I choose this, I'm going to click on Preview so that I can know, all right, is this the best one? All right, now just understand that if you are going to be tracing like photographs with millions and millions and millions of colors, it's probably not going to come out with the same kind of fidelity that you might expect. It's not going to look like a photograph. It's going to make it into like millions and millions of individual path points. Okay, because ultimately when we are tracing, we want to make this as a replacement for us drawing something using the pen tool. So you can't really draw something out like a photograph because it's too detailed. So just keep that in mind. But if you have a logo or something like that, or an illustration, it could even be something that you drew, you scanned it in, but you don't want to have to draw it out yourself, tracing is going to be an incredible tool to be able to work with. Okay, so you'll see here, I have a number of different options. Is it high fidelity photo? Is it low fidelity? Instead of 3 colors? Oh, I don't know. Maybe let's just try some of these out. Let's go to 3 colors. I get my preview, and something just happened. If you notice, it just kind of just froze a little bit and just kind of went into place. But I don't know, did that actually work? Okay, let's just see what happens now when I go to the next step, which is expanding. Okay, we've talked about expanding several times in this series, where expanding is going to say, hey, listen, make whatever you see here into vectors, right? Whether it's going to be a bunch of shapes, it's going to be some lines, some strokes, etc. So when I click on expand, you'll notice, okay, something else more or less kind of subtle happened. All right, what's next? Okay, I remember he said that this now becomes some kind of vector. So how do I choose my vectors? Oh, let me go over here to my direct selection tool. Whoa, okay, now I see what's going on here. Okay, now before I start doing anything, let's come over to here. Let's do one more time with Donald. Let's do the same thing. So you can see this go in real time. I'm gonna click on that. I'm gonna come over to here and you'll notice here my presets. And let's just try the same thing. Let's go to 3 color and wait for it. This maybe is having to work a little bit harder. Okay, and again, you can see a little tiny flash there. Okay, something happened. Don't know exactly what happened, but it actually did do something. All right, now depending on what you're working with, you may want to have different types of presets that you're going to work with, and you'll play around with some of these things as well. Okay, for right now, I'm going to keep it simple just to kind of take you here, and then you really just experiment with it. But you will see, now that I understand a little bit more about it, that it created 214 paths. It got 3 colors in there somehow. How many anchors in there? Wow, there's a lot that it did. All right, now I'm going to expand it again. Click on that. And then I'm going to go over here to my direct selection tool. And yep, okay, that seems about right. And I zoom in. I can say, whoa, there's a lot going on here. Okay, so I may have to clean this up a little bit, but it still saved me a ton of time having to draw this out. Now at this point, you probably already know about what you can use your add anchor points and your delete anchor point tools to how to work with them, and also how you might want to work with something like this. All right, so now let's see what we can do with our little minion here. All right, now I'm going to go over to here, select this, and you will see that there's actually a little more than meets the eye, believe it or not. I know you probably want to focus directly on the minion. You can see I've got his glasses there and his little overalls and everything like that. But I actually have something else that kind of I need to grapple with, and that is this little guy right here, which is the background, because I actually did bring in the background. So I'm going to use my group selection tool and just simply click. Okay, and that actually groups everything outside of his body. And now I want to get rid of that, so I'm just going to hit delete, and I'm just going to just grab these guys, okay, and then just hit delete again. And again, I'm just using my group selection tool and hit delete. All right, and now one more. And now I'm in a pretty good place to start setting myself up for live paint. All right, so I suggest you get something like this, get your favorite cartoon character, get something relatively simple for now, or maybe even grab a logo, anything that you want to be able to practice on. I suggest you bring this in, you place it, and then you bring up your image trace panel, and then experiment with all the different settings that you can do. And then remember to expand it when you're done so it becomes full of anchor points. And then make sure you get rid of anything along the outside. Then what we're going to do next is work with live paint just to add some color onto this. Okay, so pause the video, practice this. Good luck, have fun, and we'll see you soon. Now that our minion has been traced and expanded, what do we need to do next to give him some color? Give him some color on his overalls and his eyes and his face and everything. We need to make him into a live paint object. So just a few exercises ago, we did that same thing with our little flower. Now we're going to do it with this cool illustration that I didn't even draw. It just came in and I traced it, and now I can paint it. So let's go ahead and just select everything. And if you recall, I'm now going to make this into a live paint object. Now, I'm going to show you another way to do this if you want to. I can simply click on this live paint bucket, but sometimes you may hear about this when it says object, and this is option here to live paint, and then simply make, or Alt, Control, or Command X if you want to. So I click on that, and now it is now a live paint object. Okay, now remember what that means. That means I can then go over here to my live paint bucket and then just start clicking on the object based off of the color that I have here. Now, earlier we were working with our individual swatches, right? So let's just say I want to make him yellow, and you'll notice how my swatches come up on top of my little bucket. Now, you'll notice how I have these three little like little swatch thumbnails that come up. What is that referring to? Essentially, that's referring to the middle one, that is what I just selected, and the one on the left of my swatch that I just selected, which is here, and also on the right of what I selected. So now if I go to the right with my keyboard, you'll notice how I can toggle through all my individual colors, and it changes accordingly. Okay, so that might be a little more work than what you want to do, but just know that is a good tool to work with. So I click on that, and very easily, amazing, I just now added some skin color on from, that's so cool. I just did it for his head. Now let's go ahead and give him some black glasses, come around, pretty neat. And now let's give him some nice blue eyes. Let's come right there in the center. Okay, cool. And then let's give him maybe some brown overalls. All right, very nice. Look how amazing that is. So cool. How about some yellow gloves? I don't know, I'm sure it's a different color, but let's go ahead and just choose it accordingly. You know what, I changed my mind. I don't want to give him yellow gloves. That's the same color of his skin. What could I do? I can go right back and make some changes accordingly. He's gonna have now red gloves. Awesome, so cool. Now let's give him some dark blue shoes and give him some pants to match his overalls. Love that. Amazing, amazing, amazing. Let's go back, grab that. Bam, bam, and bam. Love that. Now, click away, and there you have it. So cool. So just as we did with our mandala flower, and just as I suggested you do with your tracing, I want you to now grab your own character and start applying your live trace using some of the colors and swatches that maybe you've created, but also working with the tools that we discussed earlier with being able to now toggle back and forth, going through all your different live paint objects, maybe adding on some patterns, maybe adding on some gradients. Okay, just go crazy, have fun with it, and just really be able to just behold the amazing awesomeness that this tool has to offer. Okay, I'll pause the video, you pause the video, and have fun, and we'll see you in the next lesson. At this point, you are most likely aware of how strokes work. We see some strokes down on the bottom around our shape. We see some strokes around our text. Now, in Illustrator, strokes are considered brush strokes or considered strokes. We have a whole brush library, and there's some kind of overlap between them. But there's also a number of different kind of brush strokes we can work with, and there's also a number of different ways that we can apply them. So we've already seen how we can apply a stroke just on a shape. Going over here to our strokes, you can see over here, go to our strokes, change the color. And also note that you can click on stroke here, and then you can change some of the parameters. You can change the width, you can change the quality of it. So all kinds of different fun things you can do. Hopefully at this point, it's relatively familiar to you. But let's talk about some other kind of creative ways that we can use strokes and apply them. So you have something called the brush tool, and you'll see the brush does more or less kind of what you expect it to do. Now you'll notice I click on brush, and I have something left over here from in terms of what all my brushes are available as. I'm just going to do just a very basic brush stroke, right? Which with nothing too fancy on there, because notice how we have different types of brushes we're going to apply, but I'm just going to keep it at just something very basic for right now, choosing my stroke width and my color. And I'm just going to go ahead and just click just like that. And then bam, I have that. I'll do that one more time. So I'm going to go a little bit more kind of like that. Okay, pretty good. Not too bad. Let me go ahead and undo that. Let me show you just one thing you might want to do while you are brushing is to double click on your paintbrush, and you will see you have the option to adjust what's called your fidelity. Notice how smooth mine came out. Let me bring it down to accurate, and then let me just make this maybe a little bit smaller. And I'm just gonna say I'm just kind of drawing something here. I'm just kind of tracing it. I'm doing here. Okay, great. All right, great. Now you can see how that looks. Okay, it is how it is in terms of my smoothness and everything. I'm gonna go to my direct selection tool, select it. You'll see, okay, not that smooth, okay, but you know, I did my best. Illustrator did its best. So let me go ahead and back out of that. This time, I'm gonna double click, bring up my smoothness away from my accuracy, click OK. And now this time, let's see what it does. Okay, again, just kind of doing that, doing that, doing that. Okay, and now you can see it's a lot smoother. I do that, and now, okay, pretty good, pretty good. Okay, I like that. Now, some of you may know about the smooth tool, okay, where you can actually smoothen out stuff even after the fact if you want to smooth it out so it actually takes away some of those extra anchor points. So you can very easily do that, but just notice how it did take away some things. So you just want to be aware of that. So notice you can also double click on the smooth tool to make things, accurate or smooth as well. Okay, so that's just another parameter on the smooth tool, not on the brush tool, right? So it's kind of nice that they give you all those options. Pencil tool, which is living right in here, is very similar. You can see here, okay, really nice. And then I can go ahead and make that whatever size I want. And then again, I can go to my stroke and I can make some other changes to this, make that have some little rounded butts there, and pretty cool. All right, now again, keep in mind that these are all just individual strokes with little path points in there, and really very cool. Like just, wow, it's just kind of nice because I have the ability to then come back and adjust these however I want, right? I can come back here and I can just select each individual anchor point and then use my Bezier handles and then just manipulate it however I want. I can come back and bring this up here. I can bring this up like that. Okay, so good, pretty nice basic stuff there. All right, now because these are all individual strokes, we have the ability to now apply different types of brushes to them. Again, there's this kind of nice little overlap between all the things that we're working with here. Even though they are strokes, they are also brushes. Okay, so there's this kind of overlap. And you'll see here we have a number of different types of brushes we can work with: calligraphic, art, scatter, and bristle. And you'll see here just some nice examples of that. Now, if I were to simply click on this right here, and I'm going to go over to my brushes panel by going here to window and go over here to brushes, we'll see here I have a lot of different brushes I can choose from. Okay, and these are just ones that I've recently used. And then you can see some other ones here. Okay, now if I want to see all of my brushes in the library, I can click on this little library guy right there. Everybody see that way down there? I click on that and you're going to see I have a lot of little kind of like libraries and sub-libraries, right? So if I go over here to artistic, you're going to see here's a bunch of calligraphic, chalk and charcoal, ink, paintbrush. Wow, so many cool things. Go here to borders. Wow, pretty amazing. I might want that for this part here, for my square, decorative, all these things here. Now let me just go back to artistic. I'm going to choose calligraphic. All right, and then I can choose this and that. Okay, very neat, very nice. Okay, cool. Go to town, go crazy like that. Kind of bored with it. So guess what? I can just go from library to library using this right here. And then I can just say, hey, you know what? I want something a little bit more interesting. A little bit more interesting. Oh, kind of like that. Oh, wow. So now that's up here. Let me just try doing it on something as, ordinary and standard as this. So let's just see what happens when I choose. Oh, wow. I can do my brush strokes on here and on here. Oh, wow. Pretty cool. All right. So you can see kind of goes across the board, right? So you can see our art and our calligraphic, they more or less kind of overlap in terms of, what we have here. Now, if we ever want to edit these, right? If you see here, if I'm looking at this calligraphic brush, you will see that this is now highlighted and I will have the opportunity to actually edit. One last footnote to discuss brush strokes and strokes in general is the ability to expand the appearance of the actual stroke. Because right now, this is just a stroke line, right? So I have a little spine there. And certainly I have, these individual path points that are there and I can manipulate those on the end. I can work with my Bezier handle and everything. But if I make this into one big solid shape or several shapes, because of the texture of this, I'm able to have a little more control over it potentially. Okay, so I just drew a nice little artsy brush around the outside there to kind of give our little donkey a little bit of shading. Okay, kind of nice, but I might want to have some control over that. So if I select it using my normal selection tool, I go over here to Object, I'm going to say Expand Appearance, And then I go, and you can notice actually around it what happens, right? It looks like it's one big shape now. And now when I go to my direct selection tool, notice all the millions and millions of little path points that appear. So if I really wanted to control this right there to its most granular level, I can do that. See that? I can go over to here. I just want to really control how much is coming out there. This, of course, is very chaotic, but I can very, very easily come in there and manipulate it. All right, this is just one example of when you might want to expand appearance, but it's just kind of nice to know that you can start off with a basic stroke and then say, hey, listen, I don't want this to be a stroke anymore. I want to have a kind of different type of functionality with it. Now, if we go over here to this document, you'll see I have a nice little scatter brush, which has a lot of individual shapes here. But let's say I want some of these shapes. Let's say I want to work with these shapes independently. I want to change the color. I want to move them around, all that stuff. I can do the same thing with this brush stroke, essentially, by going here to Object, Expand Appearance, and now look what happens. Let me zoom in, and let me just highlight just that star, and then notice I can now move this around. I can rotate it. I can change the color if I want to. Look at that. How cool is that? So it gives you that kind of control once you expand the appearance. So some of you may decide, hey, listen, I'm going to use this as just a brush stroke initially, and then I expand the appearance, and then I can control it however I want to. So you kind of want to think about that in all your projects, whether it's brush stroke or otherwise, when you see something that you want to make it into an actual shape and give you that much more control over it, or maybe a different kind of control, consider expanding your appearance. Now, coming back to here, you'll see that there's another example that this is just a line, right? You can see that there, just drew out this line, and I put on a nice little banner on here. You can see there's that little text divider. But let's say I want this as my own. So guess what? Let's do one more. You can see expand appearance, and wow, how cool is that? And I can essentially just kind of steal this if I like. So now this is going to be my own. It's got a little bit crowded in there. I probably have to lock some layers, but you can see, cool, that's mine. It's isolated from everything else over there. I would probably deselect all these, but you can see how easy it is just to be like, hey, listen, I just want this, 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 and this. Great. Now I own that. See, it's separate from that where it wasn't before. Okay. So you want to practice this. Definitely get creative with it. Be bold, be ambitious, but just know that the options are there. In this next few set of exercises, we're going to talk about symbols, where symbols are going to be a little gift from Illustrator that are going to have a series of very complex graphics that are going to be pre-drawn, pre-created, and also vector-based that we can reuse over and over and over again. So where are we going to find our symbols? If we go over here to Window, you're going to see way down at the bottom is Symbols. And let's just see what Illustrator has given us. If you start off here, you'll see, oh, okay, not too bad. And if I click on this, drag it out, you see, all right, let me just bring this out. Cool, that's very beautiful. I love that. But let's see what else we have available to us. Outside of just these 6 ones, I have this little guy right there, which is my symbol library. So I click on that, it's like, oh man, there are a lot of symbols that Illustrator has given me. So if I just choose one of these now, you'll see it's going to pop up to its own little individual panel. And you'll see here, this is just my 3D. So same way that I brought this out here, I can then bring this out over and over and over again, right? I can just say, go over to here, and then I can do it again. All right, cool, I'm gonna use several of these. Fantastic, I can keep using this over and over and over again, okay? But now, where am I going to see all the rest of them? I don't wanna have to keep going back to here and then doing this and over and keep repeating that. So what I'm gonna do is simply click on this little guy right here, and that's going to allow me to toggle through all of the Illustrator library of symbols. So if I click on this now, go to the next ones, oh, pretty cool. Go to there. All right, very nice. You can see celebration, charts, communication, okay, all kinds of different things for fashion. Wow, excellent. So let's just say, for example, I want to just bring out a pair of shoes. I just drag that out, make that nice and big, and cool, there you go. And I could reuse that, and I could just maybe go this way. All right, fantastic. Now, let's see what symbols are all about. Now that we have them here, we can definitely just relish in the fact that Illustrator has given me all of these things for me to use over and over and over again, okay? And I don't have to draw anything out, and I can take full credit for it, okay? Now, you'll notice that way up on top here, I have this option to edit the symbol and also break the link from the symbol. What exactly does that mean? Let's just bring out something relatively simple. I'll just bring out this shirt. And let's say, for example, I wanted to make this a different color. Okay, I'm gonna bring out another shirt just so you can kind of illustrate the point here. I'm gonna make this into a different color. So when I edit this symbol, you're gonna see I get this message. It says, hey, you are about to edit the symbol definition. Any edits to the symbol will be applied to all of its instances. Oh, that is interesting. So when I make a change to this one here, all of my symbols, oh, okay, so great. So I guess this is gonna be a global change. So all right, I'm cool with that. So I do that, and now I'm gonna zoom in here, and then I select it, and now let's go ahead and make a change. Let's make it a blue shirt. Cool. Now, let's go over here to the upper left where I'm going to just get out of this and then zoom back out a little bit. And then, oh, look at that. This is now a blue shirt. I see what it did. Okay, interesting. But what if I didn't want that to happen? What if I wanted to have a shirt come out, but I only wanted one shirt to be blue and then another one to be green, another one to be red, but I still wanted to have these shirts come out, but I don't want them to all globally change. Okay, so I'm gonna undo what I did. Let's come back, and here we are before my editing. I'm going to break the link. I'm going to break the link so any changes I make just to this one don't affect the original and don't affect any of the other ones that are out here. So I'm gonna duplicate this. I'm just gonna hold down the Alt key, and then bam, I have 3 of these shirts. But now for this one, I'm going to break the link, and now it's all by itself. It's no longer linked up to my original symbol, and I can very easily now make a change to this. Okay, let's just make this green, and lo and behold, it now changes just that shape, just that drawing, and nothing else. But these guys are still linked up. Okay, do you see that? They're still linked up here. Okay, so I want to break the link, go over to here. Let's choose blue. Cool. So I still get the benefit of this because I did not have to draw this out. Illustrator did all the work for me. If I wanted to, I could even go as far as changing the shape. Okay, so I'm going to make this a little bit longer of a shirt. So let's just add that. And now I'll just go bam, bam, bam. Now it becomes a dress. Wow, that was easy. And then notice it didn't affect anything else. And also notice, of course, I did not have to draw anything else out at all. Okay, now let's just quickly explore some of the other libraries. And I'm going to have you pause the video in just a minute and then check out some of the other symbols as well, because there are a ton of them and they are just fantastic. Okay, you can see here more flowers for me to work with. Okay, that's great. Some hair. You can see different flowchart items that have little gradients in there. Okay, wow, very cool. Okay, they call this indigenous logo elements, mad scientists, map things, okay, from nature. Very, very cool. Now, if I were to take one of these that's a little bit more intricate, you'll see really how amazing this is that Illustrator is giving us these to work with. Okay, so let me just go ahead and break the link here, and I'm going to zoom in. And I'll be able to see, wow, look how amazing this is, right? This shirt was just a very simple drawing, but this one is now going to allow me to come in to this drawing, and with my direct selection tool, I can now change the color of this, okay? So you can see really the benefit of how I can work with my symbols to help me save lots and lots of time to do all kinds of different beautiful things very quickly and easily. And Illustrator did all the hard work for me, so I did not have to draw these things out. Now I have this big, beautiful butterfly that I did not have before. Now, once you do this, after you've created these things, you can then make your own symbol out of it. Okay, so if I love this butterfly, I might want to save this and make a symbol out of it. Okay, so that's what we're going to do in the next lesson, and we're going to see how we do that, and then we're going to see all the benefits of that, and we're going to see how we can implement it in a very, very cool way using a bunch of things called the sprayers and all kinds of other things there. All right, so pause the video, practice up, and we'll see you soon. In our last exercise, we learned about symbols, and we learned about the symbols that Illustrator gives us. Now let's talk about times when we want to save our own symbols so we can reuse them over and over and over again. So I have this beautiful mandala that I've created, and I want to be able to use this in many, many different capacities. Okay, so some of you may recall that I worked with my CC libraries for essentially doing the same thing because I want to have easy access to it. Let's do this as a symbol now, because you're going to be able to see how we can have some of the benefit of where we can either break the link from it or we can repeat from it if we make some changes to it. So we have a little bit of an extra bonus when we make something into a symbol. So let's just highlight our content. So let me just grab it. Wonderful. And now you'll see in my symbols panel, I have this all lit up here. You can see this little plus sign. You guessed it. This is going to allow me to now add this as a symbol. So really not a whole lot to change here except for the name. Okay, so I'm just going to call this Mandala. Okay, and I'm just going to say DC for me. And then they ask us some questions like, okay, what is the export type? I have movie clip or graphic. You really don't need to change this. This is essentially if you're working with Flash. When you're working with Flash, then these things become important. So you can really keep this as is. Symbol type, dynamic symbol. Earlier, we discussed the fact that when you make a change to it, it's linked up to its original. So therefore, that changes in its original, and then everything that's else linked up to that, that also changes. That is going to be dynamic. So I'd like to keep it at dynamic, but up to you. You can make it static, so it's not going to be linked up. Okay, and this also is related to Flash. So we don't really need to do much here except for click OK and give it a name. And you can see here, the live paint object must be expanded before saving the dynamic symbol. Click OK to expand. I'm okay with that. No problem. Okay. For most of you, before you do it, it will ultimately be expanded. Earlier, we talked about that. Okay. Because this was a live paint object from our previous exercise, it needs to be expanded before it becomes a symbol. Illustrator is pretty forgiving about that. Now you will see I now have this ready to go. Awesome. Okay. So now let's see how I can apply this. So I have this here. Let's go to another artboard. Move this guy out of the way. Thanks, but no thanks. And now let's just drag this over here and make that a little bit smaller. Okay, cool. And let's use this again and again and again. Okay, very cool. All right, excellent. Now, let's say I said, you know what? Not a fan. I don't really want this one anymore. I actually want to kind of change the color a little bit. I want to do blah, 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 blah. Okay, so what can I do is simply edit the symbol. It's going to say you are about to edit the symbol definition. Any edits to the symbol will be applied to all instances, just like how they warned me before. And yes, I do want to continue. I click OK, and now I can now make changes to this however I want. So let's now choose it, and I'm going to make some different color changes to this. Cool. All right. Let's just add on a little bit here. All right. We'll just kind of go on the edges. And I bet you can expect what's going to happen after I finish this. I'm going to go back. And now look at that. Every single one of these has now been changed. And this is something that I created. This is the coolest thing. And in our next lesson, we're going to use a number of advanced features to apply all of our symbols. And you're going to see them hiding way over here, and you're going to see all of these cool things around symbols. So stay tuned. But in the meantime, practice this up, make your own symbols, bring them into the symbols library, and have fun. Okay, and now finally, the symbol styler tool, that is contingent upon whatever style you may have chosen within your style library here. Okay, now I found that it's not quite as cool and it doesn't really give you the predictable results as some of the other ones do, but experiment with it. But Really, if you want to get deep into these, then I'd recommend bringing in the symbol, breaking the link, and then making the changes accordingly. All right. So pretty neat stuff. Okay. Right here, we just kind of started off with sort of a hodgepodge of a number of different graphics that we can sort of interplay together. But just know that once you bring it in, you have all the control in the world to resize it. You have the control in the world to rotate it, okay, to move them closer to each other, move them further away from each other. All right, very, very cool. Okay, so pause the video, practice this, bring in some of your own stuff, and really just start creating things, because there are just like hundreds of these for you to work with that are, again, just little gifts from Illustrator that you do not have to draw on your own, but they all are high quality vector graphics that you can manipulate by breaking the link, and then simply just make your own symbol based off of what you've made, and then continue working with these more advanced tools. Okay, and we'll see you in the next lesson. We're going to learn how to create a project like this, which is essentially just a combination of some basic type with a stroke on it, and a little bit of 3D, a little bit of touch type, a little bit of blending modes. So this is going to be a nice sort of full feature-rich project for you to try to be able to do a number of different things all at once. All right, so let's just see what's happening inside of our layers panel, where I have just these layers here, just my basic text layer, and then I also have this layer underneath, which is just, okay, fantastic, that's great. Now, you'll notice that when I get rid of this, my text changes. That's because of what we call a blending mode. These things are blending in together with each other. All right, so therefore it's creating that effect, right? And there's a variety of different kind of blending modes. Now, you'll also see that in my properties panel, when I select on my type, I have this thing that says here 3D extrude and bevel. That is the effect that is placed on this. And we're going to get into that once we kind of go a little bit deeper and we start to create it. All right, you'll see there's going to be also some other effects that we're going to work with in terms of our opacity. All right, now let's just see how we create this. Now I have this other layer here that we can work with that is just basic type, just like that, right? So no big deal. And what I'm going to do is simply just select it, and I'm going to put a stroke around it. And let's just maybe choose red, and I'm going to make that a little thicker. Okay, click away. And great, fantastic. Now I'm pretty much set up to apply my effect. And what's my effect in this case? It's going to be a 3D effect, and I'm just going to apply extrude and bevel. You don't got to go too far to do it. I click on that, and then amazing, right away I start to see like something pretty extraordinary. Like maybe that's all I care about. Maybe that's all I want to do. Okay, but you'll see, in case you want to move things around, this is all clickable and movable and interactive. So if I just simply click and drag this way, now I got science going that way. Now I got science going that way. All right, let's bring it back, maybe up that. Okay, pretty neat. And you'll see also I have this thing called my extrude depth. So I'm just going to maybe go up more and more and more. Wow, pretty neat. Go that way. All right, excellent. Now maybe I'm going to go a little bit less. I don't want to take away from our scientists. Okay. Okay, fantastic. Now you probably noticed by now that this extrusion is based off of the stroke that I created. Okay, so you want to keep that in mind, that in case yours is not doing it at all, that you should have a stroke, and you should also keep in mind the color of your stroke. All right, now you'll also see some other things here, right? Some like kind of presets for our bevel, right? So sometimes these will work, sometimes they won't. None usually works pretty good depending on what you're doing. We're going to be doing another 3D project in a bit where some things like a rounded one might look pretty nice, but experiment with it. So let's just try complex. It might take a second or two for it to render. Depending on your computer speed and processing power. And remember, this is complex, so we can expect things to be a little bit more complex for our computer as well. And lo and behold, wow, it did something pretty neat, right? Kind of like that on some levels, right? Did a lot of things. But let me just switch that. Let's try to go to another one. Let's just try rounded this time. And again, it might take a second. Like, okay, and not exactly what I expected it to do. So let me just come back to none. And Illustrator's pretty happy with that. All right. And then you can play around with some of these other things as well. Like here, this is where is your lighting coming from. Do you see that? So you can see that kind of gives it a little more or less texture. So you can see, all right, very good. And then you can play around with these different levels of intensity, right? So it's okay, really what's happening for my image. If I bring up and down the intensity, the ambient light, you just kind of really spice to taste with a lot of these things here. So it's like, what is it doing to manipulate our image? Okay, and then blend steps, we're going to talk about blends in this class as well. You can see how it's going to kind of blend in with our 3D, maybe have multiple strokes on there, so you can kind of blend them all together. So I'm pretty much good to go, all right? And I just want you to know that at some point in another class, I'm going to talk about mapping art to our 3D, so stay tuned for that. Now, I'm going to click OK, and just like that, I now have a 3D extrude and bevel effect on my text. Like, pretty cool, pretty cool. Now, earlier I talked about how we also might want to use touch type on this, because guess what? This text is still live, right? So I could actually come in here and still make changes to this, right? And I could just, put an exclamation point in there, something like that. But I just want you to know that you can still always change the type. Now, what I could do is move my type around, make this go up, make this go down, each letter kind of be scattered, maybe rotate a little bit. That is what touch type is. So how do I do that? If I go over to here to my type tool, I'm going to go over here to touch type, and watch what happens now when I click on this S. It now gets isolated out, and now I can move this up, and then maybe I'm going to move my I maybe down a little bit. Okay, that's kind of fun. Maybe I'm going to make my C kind of rotated. Cool. A little more fun. Click on that. And notice also how you can just change individual colors. So maybe this is going to be something for kids, and you want to just kind of make it a little bit more fun and interesting for them. Because I'm using touch type, I can just kind of isolate some of these things out and make it a little more fun. So this is a combination of working with my 3D and my type, and now with touch type, which gives me all the cool power in the world. Okay, so I'll just maybe do one more. Let's maybe make that blue. Okay, very cool. All right, so I'm pretty happy with that. I'm going to go back to my regular selection tool. And now let's see what we can do with our blend modes. Now, your blend modes, they blend together different layers with each other. Sometimes to give it more darkness, sometimes it's going to give it lightness, sometimes it's going to be a perfect combination of the two. Sometimes you're going to get kind of crazy results just in terms of the saturation and color that it decides to do based off of the opposite side of the color wheel. So you'll really want to experiment with this. I have a nice little handout that kind of breaks down what each of them does, but really so much of it is about kind of spicing to taste so you can see what you can do. So now I'm just going to go over to here to opacity to find where my blend modes live. So when I click on this here, you're going to see I have a lot of different options here. So let me just go down here to, let's just say, difference, and say, whoa, dramatically different. Okay, I'll go to exclusion, slightly more different. Some of these won't really do anything at all, but they will blend in together. Notice how, because this is light, right, I actually was able to go through it where the darkness ones don't go so much where the ones that are just for perfectly black, but you get this really cool effect that I can now see through her where I wasn't able to do that before. So I'll change that to something a little lighter, and we'll see what that's going to do. And let's go maybe even lighter than that, and we'll go, okay, very good. Now I can actually see through that S. So if that's an effect you want to do, just make sure all of your colors are see-through if you wanted to do a blend mode for darken. So I'll just do one more. Let's do this kind of bright yellow again. And finally, let's do green to green. Okay, very nice. Get out of that. Excellent. All right, so we've seen now just a handful of different things that we can do to create something pretty extraordinary. So what did we do? We just started off with basic type. I converted it to a special effect called my bevel and 3D extrude. And I just made the changes accordingly, however I wanted to do them. Then I came back in here and then I just played around with working with my touch type to move it up and down, rotating it and also changing the colors. Now, let's say I wanted to make this a little more 3D, change my mind, I want it to be something slightly different. I can always come back here. Okay, so you can see it's going to be here in this appearance panel. You'll also see it's going to be here in this appearance panel. So when I click on that, you'll see it takes me right back to here. And then if I want to make up my extrude depth be a little bit more, I can do that. Or a little bit less. Okay, or if I want to rotate it slightly different, pretty cool. Nice, I like that. Kids are going to love that. And wait for it to render. I click OK. And you're done, right? Pretty awesome, really. So you'll want to experiment with that. We're going to be doing another 3D lesson where we're going to start from the beginning, where we're going to be creating a heart, like I said, where we're going to map in some other things inside of it. And you're going to see sometimes you might want to make a 3D object of sorts, and you want something to live inside of that object. Okay, this is just 3D text. And you'll see how easy it is to do something pretty extraordinary. So pause the video, practice, and we'll see you in the next lesson. Continuing on from our previous lesson on 3D, we are going to learn how to do 3D on non-text objects. And we're going to draw them from scratch because maybe some of you need some review on that. And we're also going to do what's called mapping. We're going to map something on there. Like, for example, this word mom is on there. And look how nicely that just fits into the perspective of the heart. And that is no coincidence. That's what mapping does. You'll also notice how it has a little soft edge around there, some lighting, all that good stuff. Now this all just started from a very basic heart that we drew out. So I'm just going to do a new document and we're going to bring up our guides and we're just going to draw out a nice little heart. And how do we do that? Let's go ahead and see how we can just draw something, and we're going to use a combination of a few different tools, which could be some good review for you on how to kind of just draw in a more sort of methodical way. And then we're going to make it into 3D, of course. First thing I want to do is make sure I have no fill and I have just a stroke, and it can just be one point if you want. And very simply, I'm going to go over here to my pen tool and let's just start drawing out where we want our kind of heart to sort of like begin and end. So I'm just going to click, and then maybe I'll go over to here, and then I'm just going to go over here. All right, and then I'm just going to hit escape, tell it that I'm done. And let me just zoom in here, and it's pretty good, right? Kind of clings right to that. And we'll always be able to fix this later on. But now what I'm going to do is I'm going to make this more rounded, a little more kind of heart-like. So I'm going to go over to here to my anchor point tool, and then very simply just convert this to something a little more rounded. Okay, so I'm just holding down the shift key to keep that straight. And then notice I'm going about, what, 1, 2, 3, 4 little grid boxes over. Okay, so go ahead and just click and drag until you get the nice heart shape you want, and then how concave you want to make it. So again, I'm going to do 4. All right, and pretty cool. That's a nice start for my heart. And what I'm going to do next is something pretty cool, which is going to be a reflect option and then just join the two together. So what's that going to look like? If you go over to here on the left hand side, you're going to see that there might be like the rotate tool if we work with that before, the scale. Okay, we also have the reflect tool. So this is now highlighted. I have that selected, and I'm just going to simply double click on this. I want you to notice a few options for me to work with is to reflect this guy. Oh, okay, yeah, I definitely want to do that. And how do I want to reflect it? Oh, okay, do I want to go that? No, it's not going to make sense. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is make sure that everything is selected and go over here to my appearance, choose effects, and go over here to distort and transform, and just simply go to transform. We've done this before. And very simply, I'm going to say, hey, listen, I want you to reflect this guy. So as soon as I do that, like, oh, that's pretty cool. You can see it does that, but it's not actually making my heart. So a couple of things I got to do. I got to move it. So you can see I can move it very methodically. I'm going to move this over 4 inches. How did I know that? Because look, this is 1 inch, this is 2 inches, and I have to go all the way over 4 inches. Okay, and look at that. I got a heart. Amazing. Okay, and finally, I need to say one copy. It's very important because if you didn't, then it would just transform it and move just that object, and then you wouldn't have 2 versions of it. So I'm making one copy of this. And I click OK. Now, because I put an effect on it, like you saw in your Mandala exercise, it's actually only doing it on one of these, right? So if I were to try to actually make a 3D object on this, it wouldn't understand it. It would only do it on the left side. This is a great example of how you would expand your object now, right? We want to expand the appearance so they all become one, okay? So the thing I want to make sure though, for sure, is that these guys are actually connected to each other. Okay, so let's just make sure of that. So I'm going to highlight that, and then I'm going to join them. So the easiest way to join is just Control or Command J, making sure this is all one. Okay, because sometimes you can't tell. I did such a good job of bringing that together. I can't tell sometimes that they're not, in fact, joined. See? But now watch what happens when I do Command or Control J. Now they get joined together. All right, now you're going to see that this is going to have some kind of impact on my heart, but it might actually be pretty cool. All right, but we can, of course, fix that. We can just remove one of the anchor points after the fact. All right, but don't worry about that. Don't worry about getting it perfect now because we're going to be able to do whatever we want to do later on. So let's now just start tinkering around with our heart. Okay, so I'm going to select my heart and it's all complete. And let's just use a nice little pink heart there. Love that. Amazing. And then if you want to put a little bit of a stroke around it, you can do that. So let's put a little red stroke around it. Let's go back. Let's go to pink. And then my red stroke. And then maybe you want to make that a little thicker. Okay, make that a little subtle. Okay, good. Now let's make this into a 3D object. We've seen this already. We see that we can go over here to our effects panel. We're going to choose 3D extrude and bevel. And pretty quickly, it becomes a heart. All right, nice. All right, maybe I like that. And I can extrude this more and more and more. Nice. Make me hungry for some chocolate. Okay, and of course, I can play around with this just like how we did with our type, just in the last exercise. All right, nice. You can see what it's doing there. All right, I like that. Very, very cool. And then, like I said earlier, you have different options for beveling. In this case, we're going to choose rounded. Let's see what that does. Oh, that's kind of interesting. And I'm going to come down here to definitely say my plastic shading. And then after I do all these, I realize, okay, you know what, maybe it's too much extrusion. So let's just bring that down. Just using my scroll wheel, have these kind of joined up a little bit. Okay. Not too bad. And you really just want to kind of experiment with these, really. Just like, what does one do compared to the others? Okay, maybe you want to have a little indent like that. Kind of fun, pretty interesting. Now, I'm just going to say, okay, come back here. And then maybe I decide, you know what, I actually don't want that stroke after all. So let's just remove it. See what it does. Ah, I actually kind of like that a little better. Okay, now let's come back. Click on 3D extrude. And now that's going to take me back to my dialog box. And then maybe, okay, you know what? I don't want rolling after all. Let's try round. Okay, I think we're getting someplace, right? I like that a lot better. All right, so you're going to see how there's a lot you can do. Just really experiment with these, right? Just kind of see what is going to do what for you. Okay, maybe you want to put a gradient on this to start with. Okay, so pretty fun. In a second, I'm going to show you how you can do this map art thing. So let me just go ahead and click OK. And we come back to originally where we started from. And you'll notice how perfectly this is inside of here. Now, if we go into this layer, you'll see when I open up my effects, we'll see all the different things that I have in here, right? In case you want to emulate this, you can see here I have rounded, plastic shading, some different light intensity, okay? And then other things you might want to play around with, okay? I'm going to cancel out of that because I want you to see something about my map art. What is my map art? If we open up to, believe it or not, our symbols, you will see that I have a symbol right in there called mom. In order to map any kind of art into something, it needs to be a symbol. It's like, huh, okay, did not see that coming. But what we need to do is now create something that's like this, right? That's going to be able to fit directly inside there. So if we come back to here, and again, I'll fix that later on if that's bugging any of you, we're going to now create a symbol that's going to say whatever you want. Maybe it's your favorite rock band, your favorite politician. Maybe it's just you. You want to put yourself in there. And we'll just put some type in there. And that could be a picture if you wanted to. It could really be a flower. It could be anything that you're ultimately going to make into a symbol. So let's just do some type. And I'm just going to do it here just so I can see it nicely. Okay, let's just do Dad. Father's Day is coming up. All right, I'm just going to make that nice and big for now, and then Control Shift right arrow or Command Shift right arrow, or the bracket key, that is, the period. Okay, and good enough for now. All right, and then let's just change that to a different color, maybe a different font if you want. Okay, and Dad is going to love this. Okay, now I don't want to do that, right? Because when I rotate it, I want everything to kind of like fall into perspective of it. That's where the mapping of the art comes in. So what I'm going to do is simply make this into a symbol. So I click on this right here. While this is selected, click on my plus sign. I'm just going to call this Dad 3D. Call it whatever you want. It's pretty good right there. I click OK. And I pretty much don't need this anymore, right? I've now just kind of used it for its purposes. Now let's go back into our object. Let's go back into our 3D extrude and bevel. Click on that, and then I come way down here to map the art, and let's just see what it's going to do. Open this up, and it tells me, oh wait, Dave, you need a symbol. Like, oh, you know what? I guess you're right. I kind of do. What, I did make a symbol, didn't I? Oh, I'll click on that, and then guess what's waiting there for me? Is Dad 3D. And everything else that was just in my symbols library there. So when I choose this now, you will see, whoa, that is so cool. Look where it goes right there, and it has its perspective and everything. And I can move this around and then notice how it comes off like this. Maybe you want to be a little cooler about that, a little more interesting, like that. And you'll see exactly what it does. Okay, I can even resize this if I want to. Nice, that's looking even better. Awesome. Okay, and then you'll also notice there's an option here to scale to fit. If you want to do that, nice, kind of like that. And then again, I could resize that after the fact if you like as well. All right, so I am really digging this. So I'm going to go ahead and just say okay. Click OK again. And voila, pretty amazing. Okay, and anytime if I want to play around with this 3D actual object or the mapping itself, I can always come back just by simply clicking back on my effects there. And then anything you want to do, let's just add on a little bit more extrusion, maybe a little bit less. Maybe playing around with this here. See what that does, see what that does. Anytime you want, you can always come back and manipulate it however you like. It's pretty amazing. So I click OK, and this is pretty much good to go. Goodbye, Dad, to this one. Doesn't affect this. And I am so happy, and my dad's going to be so happy. And you know what? Let's fix this, actually. So I come over to here, and let's just really zoom in so we can see what, in fact, is going on. Why is it causing this problem? I have too many anchor points. Even though they joined them together, they joined two together. So I actually don't need one of them. So let's just see what that does when I click on that to get rid of it. And now everything is hunky-dory. Nice. All right, so just in case that's not clear about how these things work and why that was a little bit screwy, that's why. Because when it joined it, they weren't perfectly overlapping with each other. So sometimes when they join, you just have to get rid of certain things because there might be an extra anchor point. Great. So I really want you to practice this, really starting from the beginning and seeing if you can even get some of those basics down if you're not comfortable with it, with just using the pen tool and then using your convert anchor point tool. And then remember how we did this cool little reflection and copied it. So therefore I didn't have to actually draw that all over again. Okay, that's going to be happening all the time for a lot of you when you're drawing things out that are just, symmetrical on one side. Could be a face, could be a bottle, could be a machine, could be anything, right? So just really practice all of this from beginning to end. Watch this as much as you need to and have fun. We'll see you in the next lesson. This lesson is going to be about working with blends, not blend modes, but actual blends. Many times you're going to have objects that you want to blend together, going step by step. Sometimes you want to blend things together by color. So step by step is going to be like you notice here, I have like 150 steps going through here. Color is going from this pink to a little more blue, a lot more blue, and then bam, all blue. Okay, so it's kind of like a gradient, but you can actually do this kind of cool blend. You'll notice also I'm having a star that turns into less of a star, more of a kind of a sunflower, and then, oh my God, even more so. And take a look, it's adding color on there, and then bam, it finally does that. So it's this perfect blend of not only the shape, but also the color that lives inside that. That's pretty amazing. You'll also notice that there's a little bit of curve that's happening here. That's kind of nice. Wow, there's also a nice little loop-de-loop that's happening here. And you'll see that I have the option to do something else with blends, which is pretty awesome because guess what? This is really just two lines coming together. But how is it done? How did it actually do all this? One line just blends together into another line. And just to think about, where did it begin? Where's it going to end? And Illustrator does all the work for you. All right, so let's look under the hood and let's see how this is in fact done. So if we take a look at, let's just go to between these two colors here, right? Let's just kind of start with our kind of most basic type of blend, how we can actually create the blend. So notice here I have two colors here. I'm going to select one and I'm going to select this guy. And my goal is to make something like this just to blend them together. First thing I need to do is make the blend. I know it sounds weird, but you basically have to tell Illustrator, hey, these guys are going to blend together. Can you hook me up? Yes, I can. So if I go over here to Object, come way down here to Blend, very simply I say Make. And now, oh, all right, I can see what it did there. And it just made a step-by-step blend for me. And it did not a bad job. And maybe that's exactly what you want. Like you're doing a rainbow of sorts, or you're just kind of like just blending in a more interesting way, so totally up to you. This is not what I want. So I need to go check out what my blending options are. If you see here in the far left, you're going to see a little icon that looks like that. You move your mouse over it. It's going to tell me that is the blend tool. With this still selected, I'm going to double click on this. Remember, double clicking goes a long way in this program, double clicking on these little icons. And you'll see that I have this spacing and its specified steps of 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7, 8. Okay, great. That makes sense. Let's just change that real quick. Let's just make that 15. Because preview is chosen, I can see that there. Still not getting the effect I want, right? I could probably even say 100, and it might not get exactly the same effect that I want. Okay, you can see it's getting closer. So what I'd like to do, instead of saying specified steps, I'm going to say smooth color. Right? Okay, I like that. And you can see it's a lot more similar to that one. And believe it or not, Illustrator has to work a lot less harder to be able to do that. Okay, so I click OK, and that's pretty groovy because take a look at this. This is actually still a line that's connecting both of these shapes together. So that blend tool is still there. All right, now if at any point you don't want something to be blended anymore, you just go back to Object, you go to Blend, and then you just say Release, okay? And if you ever want to expand it, we've talked about expanding quite a bit, so then it just becomes its own sort of shape of like, okay, this is now going to be its own little shape with a gradient or whatever it is, then it becomes its own separate shape from any kind of blend or anything like that. So totally up to you, however you want to do that. Now let's play around with these two here. I'm going to make this shape go into this shape. All right, and just notice here how they're different colors, different sizes, etc. So what do? I simply go over here to Object, Blend, and then Make. And then, okay, that's pretty cool. Not exactly what I wanted, but we're on the right track. Not too bad, not too bad at all. But I want to do more of that. So if I double click back on here, you'll see here, I can say, listen, I actually want to do more steps than that. Let's do 15. Nice. That's pretty cool. Let's do 20. All right. Now we're getting someplace, something a little bit more interesting. I'm going to click OK. And now let's see what happens when I change the look of one of them. So I change this, right? I'm just going to go ahead and get into this shape, double click on there, and let's just change this to this red color. And now I go back out of this and look what that's doing. So it's living, it's dynamic, it's paying attention to what I am doing. So therefore, the blend then gets updated as a result. Very, very cool. All right. Now, let's say I want to combine this with this little curve here. Like, what? What are you talking about? I want this to be curved, essentially. So there's a couple of different ways I can do this. Number one, I can combine it with this curve. And number two, believe it or not, I can actually draw out another anchor point and then make that curved, if you will. All right, so watch what I'm going to do now. I'm just going to select this, and then with my Shift key, select this guy here. Okay, make sure maybe your backgrounds are locked, like I had that tiny little issue there. Just make sure either you zoom in or your backgrounds are locked. Now, watch what I'm going to do here. This is very cool. I'm going to go back up to Object. I'm going to come down here to Blend. And I'm going to say Replace Spine. And then what? Oh my God, didn't even know that these guys had spines. And you'll see what that did. That little line that was just a straight line before now was replaced by that little curve that I had created ahead of time, of course. So you'd want to have your curve set up ahead of time to be able to do what you want to do. Okay, so I'm going to back and just know that I could, I can do all kinds of different things to that. And I can stretch this out and do all that kind of stuff. Let me show you another way you can do this. If you're not super comfortable with drawing out your lines or whatever, let me just go ahead and just select this. I'm going to zoom in a bit. And I'm going to go over here to my Add Anchor Point tool. Of course, you can hit the plus sign. Okay, and you'll see I can now add an anchor point pretty much anywhere I want. And then maybe I want to move this over a little bit. And I'm just going to kind of use my little arrow keys, maybe get that more in the center, however you want to do that, right? So now understand what I did is I now gave my ability to have a little bit more kind of flexibility in its movement of things, right? So now if I select this, I can now move this up and down just like that, like controlling where that blend is going to go. All right, and you probably can guess where I'm going to go with this one. If I want to have a little bit of a curve, I can then convert this using my anchor point tool, or guess what, even using my convert selected anchor point to smooth. So if I click and drag now, I will now get a nice curve. Very cool. And guess what? This is still living. If I ever want to come back to my blend tool, I can now specify less steps if I want to. And you can see, all right, cool. Now I'm getting that effect. And then I can go over to here and I can even move this around someplace else a little bit further away. And then you start to get a very, very different effect just based off of the beginning and the end of whatever object you're creating. Love that. So cool. All right. And then again, you saw earlier, if this was something I was done with and I didn't want to do this anymore as far as the blend, but I wanted to keep it, I can easily expand this. If I go over here to blend and I can say expand, now they're all just simple individual objects for me to work with. Okay. Very, very cool. All right. Now let's see how this one works. Very similar to what we saw before. And you can just see here, I'm not going to recreate the star and the flower, but you can see very similar things here. This one is just a little loop-de-loop that I drew, and watch what happens now. I'm going to select both of these. I'm going to go over here to Object, go over here to Blend, go over here to make. Awesome. And now I'm going to add this guy to the mix. You might have to zoom in to really get it. Great. Now all three of these objects, essentially it's two objects because it's the loop-de-loop and the blend I just created. What am I going to do? Object. And I'm going to go here to blend. And I'm going to say replace spine. And then this time I'm going to do lots and lots and lots of them. So go to my blend tool and let's just do like 150. And what? Oh my God. Who would have saw that coming? Isn't that amazing? Just like really just such power you have to create something with just a couple of steps that would take you like forever to do manually. All right. So you want to kind of practice these things and more than anything, really experiment. Just experiment. Now let's see how this one's working. We just kind of break this apart and see what in fact is happening. I just really only have one simple line here and another simple line here. And if we manipulate this, we'll see I can now move this little anchor point down and we'll see, notice how everything now comes in. Oh, that's pretty cool. I kind of like that improvement. Just one little movement to kind of make my anchor point just shift a little bit up or down, but they're also kind of overlapping with each other because my other line is over here doing that little curvy thing. So it's not just a simple line, it's an actual curve that begins and ends and goes over here. So there's a lot that's happening here, and Illustrator just fills in the rest. So if we take a look at the actual lines themselves, we'll be able to see, in fact, what is going on. This is just a stroke that has a gradient on it. And this is another stroke that has a gradient on it. And that's what's making it do this cool thing. All right, so let's just do kind of a basic one so we can see this in action. So I'll just use my curvature tool this time. And I'm just going to click and then click and drag, click and drag, click and drag. Okay, great. And I'm happy. That's just one. All right, and then I'll just choose, maybe this one right now, and then you can see as I make it bigger exactly what's happening there. And let's just do another one. And then just for fun, let's just do that. All right. And then I'm going to change the color of this. And don't worry about if you don't get it perfect, because you might want to change the size, you might want to change the color, you might want to do all that good stuff there. Don't worry about that. All right. Now let's blend these guys together. Very simply, I'm going to go over here to Object, Blend, Make. All right. Kind of yes, no, definitely not. So let's go crazy with this guy. Let's go back to here. We're going to double click on the blend tool. And then how many specified steps? I don't know, 200. Not bad. Smooth color? Maybe. I don't know. Play around with it, right? Don't know. So let's just make this maybe not so many. Let's say 100. Okay, cool. Now I get a little more texture. But I might actually want more steps, but I actually want to bring down my stroke size. So let me go ahead and just select my stroke, come in there, double click to get in there nicely, and let's just make that a little bit thinner. You'll see how it affects everything. See that? So I might want to do, again, after I've done that, come back into my actual blend itself, and then double click one more time. And then this time I will do a little bit more now that I have thinner strokes, and just see, oh, okay, that's interesting. Now let's just go crazy with some other things we can do. Let's just kind of start to overlap some of these things and just see what it does. I'm just going to get the end of my anchor point and just loop this over here. And maybe loop this over back this way. Oh, very cool. Oh man, never would have saw that coming. Have that overlap there. Okay, so you really want to experiment with these things, and don't be afraid just to test out Illustrator to see what types of surprises it has in store. All right, you can use my example here just to play around with what we've already got, or I definitely encourage you to play around with practicing on your own, okay, with different shapes, different things that you're drawing themselves, different color, maybe strokes, okay, different directions, and then obviously playing around with our anchor points to really kind of loop-de-loop. So this might be just a nice, cool background. You do something more abstract, or it could ultimately be for a major project. So blending is really essential for so many different things. Okay, so pause the video, practice this, have fun, and we'll see you in the next lesson. Now, if you want to get a little fancier with different effects and filters, Illustrator is surprisingly potent for these kind of things. A lot of people tend to think about filters and effects and they go straight to Photoshop. But believe it or not, Illustrator has a ton of them. And believe it or not, it even shares some of these effects with Photoshop, right? And believe it or not, you're actually looking at one right now. So if you go beyond this work from home, notice I have this little image behind my work from home that's a little bit blurry. So how do I know that there's even something on here? How can I even tell? If you look in your properties panel, you're going to see that there's this little effects thing underneath where we have our appearance settings, right? So I have our fill, our stroke, etc. Right? There's nothing there on that, but there is a Gaussian blur. So when I click on that, you're going to see it's going to pop up very simply. How blurry do you want to make this? And just wait and see, and it's going to get nice and blurry. So it's a really nice way to make kind of a depth of field type of thing where you might have something in the background and you just want it to be a little bit blurry. Okay, so maybe not so much. Pretty cool. All right, so now how did I do that? How is that even applied to this? Okay, so let's now go to an image like this. And let's say I'm just trying to kind of create the illusion of like, okay, this is depth of field. This guy's in the back and he's just kind of hanging out. But we really want to focus our attention on these other guys here. So if we go over here to effects, you'll see I have a ton of options here. And one of them is going to be the option for blur. All right, and you'll see that there's a number of different kind of blurs you can work with. I'm just going to choose this very basic Gaussian blur. And then you'll just notice kind of gets a little bit out of focus. You know, it works pretty good with vectors, but it works really well with bitmaps. But I just want you to see at least how the process works, and maybe you'll get some pretty interesting effects. And if I didn't like that, if it was too much, I can always come back to it by clicking on this, and then let's just make that maybe just a slightly out of focus. I click OK, click away. All right, that looks a little bit better. You can see how that effect can be like that depth of field where it really draws our attention into here and then back in the background as opposed to the foreground. It just kind of looks like it's just a little bit more distant. Okay, now there are a number of different effects you can work with. So let's just work on like this type, for example. And I'm going to bring up my effects panel again. You can see here. And earlier we worked on the 3D. Now there are a lot of things you can do with 3D. In a little bit, we're actually going to talk about working with styles and graphic styles where they are all saved for us. We're going to go a little bit deeper than that. But let's just take a look at some other options that are here. And also some options that we already looked at, right? We went into transform, right? And there was a lot we can do with that. Remember, we could move, we can rotate, okay? We can scale. Well, let's just take a look at some of these other ones. Let's just do, let's say, twist. And then guess what? I can twist this, let's say 45 degrees. And wow, that's pretty cool. Let's just kind of, oh, who knew you could do that? And look at that. Because we're working with vector, it looks really smooth, really cool. All right, let me just cancel that. Let's try some other ones. Go over to here. Let's come back to distort. And let's maybe try a different one. Let's try roughen. Okay, look at that. Very cool. And you'll notice here how my stroke is still part of it. Okay, don't lose any of that. Now let's just see what happens when I just bring up the percentage a little bit. Yep, pretty rough. And then how much detail per inch do you want? Okay, all right, good. So just like that, I can get a pretty dramatic looking set of text. And this could be just an image you drew. Maybe it was just started off with just a basic square, basic circle, and this is what you got. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and cancel that. Just shopping around a little bit, just seeing that these things A, exist, but B, really for you not to be afraid of these. All right, now if we go over here to stylize, those of you who have worked with Photoshop before, these should look pretty familiar to you, right? Like a drop shadow, feather, inner glow, outer glow, etc. So let me go ahead and just do drop shadow. And because my preview is on, I can just see a very simple drop shadow there. Nice and clean. And you'll see that I have different opacity levels for my drop shadow. I can change the offset for the y-axis and also the x-axis, meaning it's going to go either further out to the right or left or up and down. So you'll notice here, I'm just going to bump it over and maybe bring it back. All right. Then I can also see how much blur I want. Let's bring down no blur. And you can see, oh, I'm going to get kind of an interesting effect. Right? Maybe you want to do something like this, and then, okay, great. And of course you can come in here and change the numbers to what you like. And then I can also just change the colors to something completely different if I want to as well. And then let's just maybe do like a dark red. And let's see how that kind of reflects on that. Okay, cool, a little more subtle. I'm gonna cancel that. And then let's go to something a little bit more kind of fun, silly, a little creative, which might work well for this particular document. I'm just going to bring up what I've already done. Let me just close this out and bring this one up. And look at that. Just like that, I've created something very special, very unique, and very complex, right? Which is this whole scribble thing. And this is just on type, okay? So I just want you to remember all we're working with here is on type. You can do the same thing on other kind of shapes that you've drawn as well. Okay, so let's see how we can create something like this on our original type. Okay, so let's get rid of that. And now make sure my layer is selected and come back over to here to effects. I'm going to go back over here to stylize and notice I have this thing that says scribble. Click on that and you'll see that there's a lot I can do here, right? Path overlap, line item, line options, stroke width, etc. And you can definitely play around with these, right? And I encourage you to do so. But I think the best way to apply some really cool stuff is to work with these settings and notice how there's a lot of these nice little presets. So I'll just go through maybe about 5 of these and we'll see, whoa, cool. Just like that, notice it changes to childlike and then all of these change likewise. Okay, so it's a good starting point to get something pretty creative. Oh, that's kind of nice, right? So it's not so out of control. It's still scribble, but you'll see what they've done with my red fill and my black stroke, and it really looks very authentic, as if somebody drew it out with a marker. Just take a look at some more. Very nice. And then kind of like that one, a little more mature. Let's go to sharp. Keep going. Just so you get a nice feel for what's available. All right, that's the one that I had originally. Okay. Now, if I'm in this now and I say, well, listen, I really like this, but let's just change it a tiny bit, right? It's a little bit too static. So what I can do very simply is just change things a tiny bit. See that? I just changed the angle. Okay. What about my path overlap? What does that do? Let's go over here. And, oh, that's a little bit much, but actually kind of cool, but not for right now. But I'm getting kind of a 3D scribble situation. Okay. Just maybe a tad. Who knows, or maybe not at all. Okay, maybe you want a variation on the scribble, so it's not so perfect. Great, I just went up a tiny, tiny bit. Point is, you can just come in here even after you do your presets and just play around with them. Okay, just experiment. It's really no harm. So I'm gonna click OK. All right, and just note that there are a ton of other options, and also note that you can always come back to where you started from. And also note that with type, even though this is something that now has this effect on it, I can easily come back in here and do whatever I want to it. Okay, this is now still live text, and I can play around with this in terms of my touch type, right? And also changing the words, changing the size, doing all kinds of other things, even adding on new strokes and fills. Okay, so maybe let's just explore 1 or 2 other ones. Come back here, make sure my layer is chosen. And guess what? I could add on multiple effects on top of other effects. So if I do that now, and let's just say I wanted to do this and a tiny little bit of a blur on this. So I do that, and let's just wait and see. Oh, that's kind of cool. Let me just bring that down a tiny bit, and we'll see. I just have a little bit of a blur on this, and I click OK. Oh, that actually looks a little more realistic. I kind of like that. Maybe I have that kind of blending in with something else. And now you can see it's showing me, I'm not going to see it here, so I need to go to my appearance panel, be able to see exactly what I have here. So the properties panel doesn't show it, but the appearance panel does, okay? And you'll see how I can always go back to what I was working on very easily from my appearance panel, as well as adding more on from the effects option within appearance, just like I can in my properties. Okay, so keep that in mind, really experiment, go crazy with just adding more and more and more, and just see where it takes you. Now, we've been working mostly with these effects up on top, which are known as our Illustrator effects. There are a ton of other kind of effects you can apply onto here, which are our Photoshop effects. And again, those of you who worked with Photoshop before, some of these should look familiar, like these artistic effects that you'll find inside of your Photoshop filters gallery. Okay, and also here's blur once again. Okay, we've seen that already. Okay, brush strokes, distort, right? All kinds of things here. So I have this image in the background, and this is a bitmap. So maybe I want to specialize in working with some of these Photoshop effects. So what could I do now? Let's just try brush strokes, and let's just see what that can do. Let's just go here to our crosshatch, wait for it, and now it's going to come up to something, again, that should look familiar to you, because this is literally the same exact window that you would see if you're working with our Photoshop effects within Photoshop, okay? And I could see here, okay, do I want that? I'm not really sure. Oh, but guess what? I can change some of the options here, right? Oh, okay, maybe I actually do like this, but I don't like it how they're giving it to me. So we'll see how it's going to change. Just maybe take a little while, depending on your computer. Maybe zoom out a little bit. Okay, great. Let's maybe do something potentially a little bit more extreme. Still rendering. There we go. And now I like this. And again, just for the sake of this exercise, I'm just going to go ahead and say okay, and then wait for it to change. And bam, there you have it. Something a little bit more abstract that is underneath there. Okay, so, you know, again, this is always going to be a spice to taste thing. This is really going to be something that, hey, I'm going to get it when I get it. You play around and there's nothing you can lose here. So as you can see, there are dozens and dozens of different effects to apply. It's really so amazing that you can apply these things and execute all kinds of creative elements that are relatively complex very, very quickly. Okay, and also you see how you can combine different effects. So I encourage you to experiment, do it on some shapes, do it on some graphics that you've drawn, do it on text. You see how malleable text is. All right, and then in our future lessons, we're going to be working on our graphic styles, which is going to show us a bunch of things that are all preset and have a combination of a different set of effects. All right, so pause the video, please practice up, and we'll see you soon. In these last few lessons, we've been working on a lot of cool, creative, complex effects like 3D. We've been applying some filters. We've been doing some scribbles, drop shadows, all kinds of different things. And we've also been layering some of these different effects on top of each other. And I showed you how we can go back and make some quick edits to them. So really, really cool stuff. But what if I told you that Illustrator had a whole bunch of even more stuff to work with that you can apply in a much more efficient and even more complex and creative way? Let me introduce you to our graphic styles. Where are you going to find graphic styles? Just like you find all your other good stuff inside of Window, we go over here to graphic styles, and you're going to see this thing little pops up here. Now, these are just a handful of our graphic styles, not even a tiny, tiny like morsel of what's available. But what are they? These are basically just like built-in little sets of effects all saved as one. So we can define a style as a pre-format, if you will, of like a zillion different things potentially built into something. So as an example, I'll just choose my little shape down below and I'll click on that one. And you'll see just like that, I now have, cool, some kind of cool little camouflage there. All right, that's pretty nice. Let's try this one. All right, very different, but also saved me a lot of time to apply that. Let's try this one. Oh, that's actually kind of cool for a button. Man, that just saved me a ton of time because that looks really cool. It looks kind of three-dimensional. And I like those colors. Maybe I do, maybe I don't. But guess what? That saved me a lot of time to at least be a starting point for what I'm working on. Now, when I click on this, I want you to notice that when I bring up my appearance panel, this thing has a zillion different appearances on here. Like, oh my God, look at this. Different kind of strokes piled on top of each other and different kind of fills, one on top of the other. Oh my God. And then, well, there's even different opacities and different kind of blending modes. What I could never have possibly done this, or if I did, it would have taken me forever to apply it. Amazing. Let's bring up my graphic styles again, and let's just try looking at a different one. Let's go back to what we just created and keep your eye on the appearance panel. What? Oh man. Okay, that one seems simple, but in fact, there's a lot more going on than meets the eye because it has some little texture along the outside and they're kind of stacked on top of each other. All right, and I'm, pretty impressed so far, but kind of hungry for more. So where do you think we could find all of our other graphic style libraries? Guess what? Just like we did with our symbols library, we're able to go deeper into here and find more of them. So I click on that, and you can see that there's a ton for me to work with here, right? I'm just going to go ahead and just show you what they are, and then we're going to start applying them. So I click on this here, and I'm just going to make this a little bit bigger, and we'll be able to see, wow, pretty neat. 3D effects. I just spent all this time trying to create 3D from scratch. Guess what? Now I don't have to, right? There's about, like 20 of these that I can explore. Pretty neat. So we'll come back and explore those. Over here, what is this? Not very good for me. This is for the blob brush. We're not doing that. Okay, and you can see here, artistic effects, right? Some overlap with what we did before, but let's just try it on the same one that we have selected. And let's just go to here. Ooh, that's kind of fun. Let's try that one. Let's try that one. Okay, oh, pretty cool, pretty quickly. And then again, keeping your eye on your appearance panel. Let me zoom out a little bit. Let's now choose a big shape like this. Okay, because sometimes these things can be applied to backgrounds. Yeah, maybe your character, maybe you want to give somebody a fun shirt, something like that. You can absolutely do that. So let me try, for example, this guy. I do that, and then, oh man, if nothing says Happy Land, I don't know what does. Like, that is amazing so quickly and easily. Now, when I come back into here, I'll be able to see, whoa, this is a combination of a lot of different elements here. So if I look at this, there's 4 different kind of fills happening here, and there's also an effect of halftone. So if I click on this little drop down, you'll see that this is applied here, and there's also 100% opacity, right? Which makes sense, which is fine. But more importantly is this 100% exclusion, which is a blending mode. Let's go to here, and we'll see, okay, here's another one, right? But this is 100% difference. And then here's another one, and then you can see 0% opacity, but it also still blends it in, right, for some texture because we have this little gradient, and it goes on and on and on. Okay, like, whoa, I couldn't possibly create this, but believe it or not, I can affect this if I want to. So let's just see what happens now when I click on this, and I'll just choose something totally different, and no idea what that's going to do. And wow, kind of like that, like off to a good start. Let's try this one. Wow. All right, I like it. Let's try a very, very different one. See what that does. Okay, cool. So my graphic styles started me off with something pretty interesting, and then I was able to come in and then just do something a little different just by coming here into my appearance panel and then playing around with the individual layers inside of these. All right, and let's just kind of take a nice little tour of what other things might be available. Filling things for buttons. So, all right, I got a button here. See how that's going to look. Oh, look like that. Looks a little more three-dimensional. I like that. Okay, just check it out. Nice and quick and easy. All right, I like that little gradient. Makes it a little more beveled. Okay, kind of nice. All right, and again, you may have this as a starting point, and then you go over to here to your appearance panel, and then you say, listen, I don't want that to be blue. This is going to be red, but I do like the fact that it is, beveled like this. I like the gradient. And then you go from there. All right, let's just check it out. Some other categories, illuminate styles. Let's just try that one. That would be good for one of these. Okay. Or maybe you're making like an app or something like that. Look at that. Very quickly and easily, I can apply these. All right, let's go ahead and just see a few more image effects, neon effects, scribble effects. Remember earlier how we did scribble? So we can do that very easily. Let's maybe go up to our type in this case, and let's just see what our scribble effects are going to look like on these guys. Not too bad, right? For just about 3 seconds worth of work. Nice. Or I do something here. This happy land is getting crazy happy. Nice. Okay, cool. Not bad. And again, check it out. I can always go back here and play around with my scribble effect. No problem. And then make some modifications to that. All right. So textures, type effects. Oh, this is type. What might this do to this? And just again, notice I can very quickly and easily change this to something else. So let me just try. They're pretty much asking for me to mess with this. So what happens? Oh, this is not just an effect. It's actually kind of stretch things out a little bit. Free distort effect. Oh, I'll have to go back into that and see what that did. So now I'm actually learning about new and interesting things. So let's try that one. Nice. Oh, I like that. It's very much like a comic book now. Let's just check that out. Oh, I really like that. Okay, but let's just play around with some other ones. Just clicking away. Oh, a little bit of 3D action. Nice. Okay, cool. So you get the point, right? A lot of fun. So let me come back to this original one I started with, and let's just see, well, this free distort, kind of like that. So I'm going to click on that, and now you'll see I can get into here and I can start playing around with this however I choose, or I can go in here and just distort it in a very cool, interesting way. I do that, and then nice. Now that has that cool effect on it. Okay, so actually I realized this was the warp. The free distort was the bottom part. So let me come back to here. Okay, and you can see it's applied this warp onto that, and now I can make some changes to it, and you just should see that that's going to be affected. Click OK, and great. There it is. Lovely. Okay, so a number of different effects on this. Very complex. All right, now let's just do one more. Let's now play around. Actually, let's come back to this one. And let's do 3D on this text. And let's see what is in store for us. So I'm going to come back to 3D. And let's see what we can do, because we spent so much time applying 3D that now we might be curious to see what else is available to not only apply it, but also to learn from it. Because just like I did with my free distort and my warping, I was able to look under the hood and, see, oh, what else can I do? What else can I do? So let's go to our 3D effect, and I'm just going to simply click around, and you'll see, okay, not bad. What's that one going to do? Oh, that's interesting. And then notice also it's got some different effects on there as well. Okay, so let's try this one. Very cool. Oh, I like that one. That one's very complex, very interesting. Let's try a different one and just keep going. Wow. All right. I think this is going to be my happy place for Happy Land. And let's check it out. Not too shabby for about 10 minutes worth of work. Very cool. All right. So check them all out. Really take advantage of these styles, because you probably paid some good money for this program. So really take advantage of all of the features that are available for you to save yourself some time and make some creative stuff in really complex ways, but also do it very efficiently. Okay? And a little bit, we're going to talk about some other kind of styles, which is basically going to be paragraph and character styles. All right, so those are essentially the same kind of thing, where it's preset formats for a set of paragraphs, right? Or for a character or for a word, right? But you want to be able to save that. All right, we'll be talking about that in the next lesson. But pause the video, practice this, get used to working with graphic styles, and we will see you soon. In the last lesson, we learned about graphic styles. Now, if you recall, what is a style? The The style is essentially a saved format. Okay, we can have a format of a variety of things, including things we can put onto a graphic like a drop shadow or 3D, blurring, all that good stuff. And they're essentially just saved so we can use them over and over and over again. Very cool. Now, you can also apply styles to basic text and also full paragraphs. So we can create paragraph styles and character styles. Why do we want to do that? We want to do it so we can have consistency across the board. We also want to do it so we can be more efficient in how we execute all of our styles. And in case I want to change a style later on, I only have to do it in one place, and everything that's linked up to that style then gets changed. Very, very cool. Now, we're looking at this text right here, and it's obviously very unformatted. And I want it to look a certain way, right? I want it to be to look for my titles a certain way, my subtitles a certain way, maybe my other body text a certain way across the board. I want to have some consistency, and I want to be able to do it very efficiently and effectively. So how do I do that? We need to bring up our panels that are going to live inside of the type panel and fly out here, called the paragraph styles panel and also the character styles panel. Now, when I click on that, you're going to see they come up together as a team, which is pretty great. There's my character style and there's my paragraph style. And now I'm just going to start applying the actual formatting that I want first. I like to actually do this on the front end initially, meaning I'm just going to use my basic formatting tools. Then I create the style based off of what I have selected and created. So I'm going to go over here to my lunch dishes. And very simply, I can either go up top here to my control panel, or I can go to my properties panel and then just make some changes accordingly to whatever I want that to be. Okay, so I'm just going to make this nice and big, and I'm also going to make this the bungee font. Okay, very cool. And then maybe I want to have a little bit of space underneath there, so I'm going to bring up my paragraph panel. So let's just say a little space after because it's a giant title. Okay, very cool. Don't worry about it because we can always change this later, but I'm pretty happy with that. And I'm going to keep it black. Good to go. Now let's save this as a style so I can use this for my dinner dishes. So how do I do it? Very simply, on your keyboard, hold down the Alt or Option key and then just simply click on this plus sign where it says Create New Style. And notice I'm in the Paragraph Style panel. Wait for it to load up. And then, bam, there we are. New paragraph style. And immediately it's going to ask me, hey, would you like to name this? I'm going to call this Recipe Titles. All right, so I'm going to lunch dishes, dinner dishes, vegetarian dishes, whatever it is. Cool. Then I got that there. On the right-hand side, you're going to see all of the settings that you just saw me create. Okay, pretty cool. Very nice. Love that. And you can see very simply, I can make some changes to that on the left-hand side with all my options. I'm not going to do that right now, but I do want you to note that we could very easily go back and make changes to my font. You can do all kinds of other things on there if you want to as well. Pretty cool. Definitely experiment with it, but we'll be coming back to this in just a little bit. I also want you to notice that there's this option here to add to my library. And notice I created one called Styles. Now, what is that library with a big fancy capital L? That's our CC library. So guess what? I can save this across documents. I can save this and share it with other people, right? And it's just going to be there. So therefore, I can use it with other programs as well. So it's really, really awesome. Remember how the Creative Cloud library works. All right. So I'm now just going to say, okay, and pretty happy with that. And guess what? I want to do the same thing to dinner dishes. So I come over to here, and now what I really need to just do is just kind of touch the paragraph, click on it, and now look at that. Pretty awesome. All right, now let's just do a little bit more. I'm going to go over here to chicken patties. This is going to be another level of things. So maybe I choose maybe a different style one just for fun. Let's go a little bit more quirky for these guys. All right, that's nice. And pretty happy with that. All right, very good. And that's going to be the same thing for my baked macaroni and cheese, same thing for my corn pudding, same thing for my cheese souffle. Love it. Now, again, hold down your Alt or Option key while that's still selected. All right, and this is going to be recipe names. Okay, maybe come up with better names than that. Okay, something that won't confuse you. All right, so I'm good to go there. Love it. And now I'm going to come over to here to baked macaroni and cheese. Watch, I'm just barely touching it. You don't have to highlight the whole thing. And then I go to there. I'm going to go over here to corn pudding. Look how easy that is to execute. So cool. Oops, see that? And watch this. Made a mistake? No problem at all. Love that. So happy with it. But actually, you know what? I'm not very happy with it. I really should have added on some space after my recipe names. And you know what? Do I like that font? Do I want to make it a little bit darker or bigger? I think I do. So watch this now. I'm going to go over here and double click on recipe names. And it's going to pop right up back to where I was. And guess what? On the left-hand side, I can very easily now change all of those things here. So with my preview button selected, you're going to be able to see me now make it all grow and grow. Okay, and you'll see actually this is not actually executed. I need to make that the style. You'll only see it over here on these guys. So I'm going to go ahead and fix that in a second, but also a good thing to know about. All right, but that's coming in pretty good. And then my indents and spacing. So you can see here, I can do another space after and just watch it. Is that good? Yep, that's giving it some space. I love that. And maybe a little space before too. Yep. Okay, that's looking really good. I click OK. Love that. And then come over to here and then watch this. Apply it. And OK, that was not that hard at all. Okay, very good. Awesome. So happy with this so far. And you can see again how consistent I can be now across the board on all of these. And the same process and the same philosophy also applies to all of our titles. Okay, so this is now my recipe titles. You can see this here. Just make sure. See recipe title. Let's go over to here. See how that's highlighted, recipe titles. Now I double click on it, comes up, and I decide, you know what? I'm going to do something maybe a little bit different entirely. Let's go over here to our character color and let's just choose something from our swatches. What might we want to do? Maybe I want to make it match something like my carrots. You can see, oh, okay, pretty cool. Actually, I was on my stroke. Let's not do that. So let's turn that off, but you know that you can do a stroke. Okay, so let's come over to here, drag down, and let's make that look like our carrots. I love that. And I actually kind of do want to make this bigger. No problem at all. And you know what? I bet this one also got bigger too. Oh, love that. Really starting to come together. All right, so just imagine a huge document you have and you want to make these changes and these modifications and really this kind of stylizing go across the board. You want to use paragraph styles because it's going to save you so much time when you're implementing them, but then also after the fact when you inevitably want to make a change. Okay, so go ahead and pause the video, and I'm just going to do another short video on character styles. All right, and please practice up. See you in a second. Character styles are a lot like paragraph styles in that it allows us to modify and enhance the formatting of something. So if I want to change the color of something, I want to change the font of something, I can change that with character styles. The difference is that paragraph styles affects an entire paragraph, whereas a character can be just like one letter, one word, or even a few words, but it doesn't affect the entire paragraph. Now, the process of what we do on the front end is more or less the same, but where we save it inside of our character styles is going to be a little bit different, and where we apply it is also going to be different. So let's just say, for example, I have the word chicken right in here 3 times, and I just want that to stand out. So very simply, I can now make a character style out of that. So I want to make that a different color, right? So let's just make this orange like the rest of our headings there and our little carrots there and everything like that. Okay, and then fantastic. That's going to make it stand out. Now, I'm going to make a character style based off of what I just highlighted. So same thing as I just did with my paragraph styles. Hold down the Alt or Option key, click on my Create New Style. New dialog box pops up, and I'm just going to say keyword coloring. So I know exactly what that is. Okay, that's great. And I'm good to go unless I want to make some other changes to this. You can see all these other things you can do if you want to, right? We've talked about this before. All right, there's my character color if I want to change it again. Lovely, fantastic. It's going to go into my styles library. I click OK. And now let's go ahead and make sure that this is applied. You'll see that it does kind of like, doesn't take it automatically. Like if you're used to doing this in InDesign, it doesn't take it as the actual style. There's no like apply style to apply the style to selected text like it does in InDesign. So you actually do have to go and select it. All right, so let's just see this in action. Go over to here, chicken, bam, select it all, chicken. Okay, cool. Oh, there's another one. All right, very nice. All right, and then I'm good to go. But of course, I can come back and I make some changes to this anytime I come back. It's going to bring up the dialog box, and anything else I want to do here, I can do. So let's go back to my character color and let's just make that red. And you'll see that every single one of these now changes to red. Let's see something a little, okay, good. Let's green chicken. We want to be healthy, right? Connotes a certain kind of element there. Keep that. Very good. Very happy. I click OK. All right. Awesome. Very cool. So you want to practice this, put it into action, but this is all about time saving. It's all about consistency. So both character styles and paragraph styles and also graphic styles are invaluable. All right. So practice up, have fun, and we'll see you soon. Thank you for watching, everyone. This concludes our advanced Illustrator class. Congratulations. Wasn't that fun? Illustrator is truly amazing. Now, so are you. Let's just review what we covered in this class. We did some pretty neat things with type, including creative brushstrokes, touch type, and remember we did 3D. We also learned how to get more creative and custom with all the brushes Illustrator has to offer. You also created some pretty cool projects with your live paint and image trace tools, and we took advantage of the amazing symbols and graphics libraries. And all throughout, we showed you a number of tips and tricks to make you a more efficient and creative artist. Hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. Thank you again, and hope to see you in the next class.